afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 13th day of July, 2021. Please rise if you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask that you remain standing and join us for a brief moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the men and women of our military who bravely defend our freedoms at home and abroad each day. Let's join together in a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilman Martell.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
All right, we're all here. I'd like to add a few items to our agenda in the form of walk-on resolutions. See if we can do this as one motion. 36614 prefers charges and ratifies a suspension. 36942 appoints Lisa Merker to Office Assistant position in Building Department. 36945 appoints Suzanne Kuna to Senior Office Assistant position in Building Department. 36946 appoints Kelly Campbell to Senior Office Assistant position in Justice Court. 36973 recalls and amends Resolution 21628 authorizing the supervisor to enter an agreement with Hyduck Engineering, LLC for professional engineering services in connection with the preparation of a mapping plan for the formation of a sewer district for the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District. 36975 is the 13th warrant, and 36977 authorizes the purchase and installation of a 5-ton rooftop HVAC unit from Train USA, Inc., using the Omnia Partners contract. So I'll make a motion to walk those 7 resolutions on.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. So those will be made part of our agenda at the end. All right. Next item, I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular town board minutes of June 22nd, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Next, I'll make a motion to approve the special town board meeting minutes of June 24th, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And last, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our special town board meeting of July 1st, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the communications?
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received from the Department of the Army, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, New England District, a neighbor notification regarding an environmental investigation at the former Suffolk County Army Airfield Bombing and Gunnery Range Munitions Response Site, located 2 miles north of West Hampton Beach, beginning in fall of 2021. From the New York State Association of Towns, American Rescue Plan funding deadline of July 9th, Farmland Solar Energy Development Survey. From the New York State Department of Public Service, virtual public statement hearing, July 7th, 1 p.m., South Fork Export Cable Project, and the PSEG Long Island Utility 2.0 and Energy Efficiency and Demand Response Plan for the 2021 annual update. From the Town of Riverhead, notice of adoption for local law. Town of Southold, notice of adoption. Village of North Haven, notice of adoption. Village of Sag Harbor, public hearing notice. Village of Sagaponack, notice of adoption. And Village of Southampton Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation for a location on Howell Street in Southampton Village. Village of West Hampton Beach, Planning Board hearing for July 22nd. For location at 107 Old Riverhead Road, West Hampton Beach. New York State liquor license 30-day advance notice to municipality, new applications to the listed entities, and financial disclosure statement filings from the listed individuals. We have also received letters, emails, and land use applications regarding the following: alienation of parkland in furtherance of Good Ground Road extension in Hampton Bays, change of zone petition, concern for independent living, 130 Counter Road 39, Southampton, Change of zone petition NRP Group LLC Quiog. New York State DEC Notice of Available Funds for Urban Forestry Quick Start Grant. Petition for road improvements, Flying Point Road Watermill. State Comptroller notification of webinar regarding financial condition analysis. And Zoning Board of Appeals applications for the following: Pearson Road, Flanders, Hawthorne Road, Shinnecock Hills, and Crescent Street, Sag Harbor. Following bid openings took place for the demolition at 503 Noyak Road, North Sea on June 30th, as well as the mobile concession for Good Ground Park. The following report was filed from the Town Comptroller for the June 2021 monthly financial reports. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. All right, so we're going to move on to public hearings. We have several public hearings scheduled for today. There are 4 of them, and I guess we'll start by reading the first public hearing notice, and then I'll briefly go over the rules for public speaking. So, Cindy?
Public hearing number 1 on the acquisition of lands of Cat Cove Group, Inc. and Riverside Catwalk LLC, Riverside, and amend the CPF management plan to include properties.
All right, we're going to ask Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager, to introduce this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board, Madam Clerk. Lisa Combrink, Community Preservation Fund Program Manager. The first public hearing on for this afternoon is the potential acquisition of 2 properties in Riverside. The first is 248A Flanders Road, and the second is adjacent to that, 252 Flanders Road, and I'm going to point them out on the aerial that is up on the wall closest to your table. This piece, and then the adjacent piece next to it. 248A Flanders Road is owned by Cat Cove Group, Inc. It's zoned Highway Business and RWB, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-118-225. That's the larger of the 2 pieces. That's 4.5 acres. Immediately adjacent to that is 252 Flanders Road. That's owned by Riverside Catwalk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-118.1-1-2, and that piece is 1.3 acres. So the total is 5.8. The properties are both included in the CPF project plan under Village, Hamlet Green, Parks, and Recreation. They're located on the Peconic River and in a critical environmental area. As you can see from the aerial, there are a number of already preserved or publicly owned properties on either side of those 2 pieces. As you're looking at the map, closer to me is a property owned by the town of Southampton as open space. That's 7 acres. I'll point that out. This piece here, and then these pieces. On the other side that are outlined in green are owned by Suffolk County. Those are 8 parcels in total, and those are 16.5 acres. So this would be a nice way to add to already existing preserved properties. The purchase price for these 2 parcels together is $2 million.
Lisa, the piece to the left in that's a county-owned, right? And the piece on the right is town-owned?
Correct.
Okay, and the town would manage this in conjunction with all the other pieces?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so this could be part of the proposed park, the maritime park for Riverside?
Yes, and it's
There are
right on the
trails
river.
and access to the waterfront. Okay, this is not being proposed, at least at the moment, as a water quality project? This is an open space?
That's correct. It was determined that it would be preserved as parkland
Okay.
and not
But
not
with-
as a water quality acquisition, no.
Right, but as a community hamlet type of park?
Yes.
Any other questions for Ms. Combrink? you said the purchase price was $2 million?
Yes.
Okay. And is this owned commercially or residentially, Dina?
It's a split zone. The larger piece is highway business and RWB, and then the smaller, long, skinny piece is R15 and R80.
Okay, so the larger piece is commercially zoned?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Anybody?
No?
All right, thank you. Is there anyone
Thank you
from
very
the
much.
public who wishes to be heard on this public hearing, not anything else? I know you're here for other things. All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, before we read the next public hearing notice, there are some seats. I know some people may not feel comfortable. We're still in a pandemic. The room next door has been set up to stream this meeting. So if you go out, there's some seats there. You can watch the meeting and wait to the item that you're interested in and then come back in if you want to play. Or you could stand if you wish to, whatever's comfortable for you. But they're literally immediately next door. There's a TV set and some chairs, and you can watch the meeting live from there as well. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you'll read the second public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 2, to consider accepting a grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Seatuck Cove Estates, Eastport.
All right, thank you. And our Deputy Town Attorney, Kathleen Murray, will introduce this.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good afternoon, members of the Town Board. For your consideration is the acceptance of a deed of open space in conjunction with the planned residential development or cluster map of Seatuck Cove Estates. And this is a map of it right here, if you can see that. The map is located in the R40 zoning district and in the hamlet of Eastport. This is a 4-lot subdivision situated on approximately 7.396 acres. Lot 5 is an open space parcel being dedicated to the town pursuant to this map and totals approximately 4.235 acres. The Town Planning Board granted final conditional approval for this map by Resolution Number 316 of 2020, adopted on December 10th, 2020. If the Board is so inclined, there is a resolution accepting this dedication of open space on the agenda for your consideration later today. Does the Board have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Murray? All right, thank you. Kathleen, is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on this second public hearing? All right, I'll make a motion to close.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor? Aye. All right, we will move on to the third public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 3, to consider amending Town Code 330-109, fences, walls, and accessory driveway structures and clotheslines, as it relates to the height of walls and slope of the grade immediately in front of the walls.
All right, and introducing this will be Assistant Town Attorney Katie Garwin.
Good afternoon. There's just a lot of stuff up here. Good afternoon. I'm here presenting on this Town Code Amendment. We did have a work session on this back in June, and just for the record, this is a code amendment to change the way that the town building department measures the height of retaining walls. As you may remember, we had tried to work on just retaining walls in general several years ago, and that was as it relates to IA systems, and we never really moved on that amendment. This amendment, however, is to clarify that when people are submitting applications to construct retaining walls, that the height of the retaining wall is measured just as you would measure a fence, just as you would measure any other wall. Currently, the town code allows for the portions of the fence or the retaining wall to be averaged, and that's resulted in some extremely high retaining walls in the town of Southampton, and this is just to clarify it. So if you see a retaining wall, you're going to measure it from the bottom to the highest part, and that's the height of the retaining wall. We did refer this code amendment to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. They said it was a matter for local determination. We referred it to the Planning Board. We just got their report yesterday, and they had one comment that was pretty much asking for changes to be made to the local law to define some terms or to clarify some of the subsections that are referred to. There are no new terms in this town code. The town code does define wall, it does define fence, and I had spoken with Deputy Town Attorney Kathleen Murray because she sat with the Planning Board when they were going over it. She thought maybe they were referring to the section in the amendment that refers to subsections A and B, but that's actually in the town code. So I think maybe when they looked at the referral, I only amended section C, and it does refer to A and B, so there's no changes that have been made to that. So I don't think there needs to be any further amendment to this. Also, at our work session, Councilman Bouye had asked me to reach out to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services to see if they had any recommendations. And so I did email a couple of our contacts over there, and I heard back from Kenneth Siegel, who is the chief in the Office of Ecology. And he had essentially said he had coordinated with the Office of Wastewater Management over at the county, and they had pretty much said when they see any applications for permits for retaining walls, if they're 4 feet or below, they basically just sign off on them, and anything over 4 feet, they say to that applicant, you need to make sure you have approval from your local village or town, which is perfect and consistent with how this is drafted, because in the town of Southampton, you're allowed to have a 4-foot fence or wall, but anything over that, there are certain restrictions on where it can be. So I don't think any further amendments need to be made unless we hear from anyone in the public.
So just clarification, so the height becomes 4 feet as the max, correct? And you're allowed then, it's 4 feet from the finished grade to the top of the retaining wall, and then you can slope it out at 1 to 4, basically?
Correct, correct,
And
except
then you
that.
could do another one.
Correct, except that the town code, without any amendments to it, the town code says, in your front yard, it can be 4 feet. A fence, a wall, a retaining wall, anything. If you're in your side or rear, it can be 6. Like we have different areas where a fence or a wall can, be higher than that. But the county is saying, if they see 4, they won't even ask, any further questions, which is which is the best height for us.
So, I mean, the difference though between a fence and a retaining wall, well, there's lots of differences, but with a fence, you don't have a big drop on one side of it. A retaining wall, you do. So
Correct.
if you have a 4-foot drop, wouldn't you need then to have a fence on top of that? And then that has to be 4 feet, so you're basically creating an 8-foot, what looks like an
Yeah.
8-foot barrier.
Yes, and I'm going to let Tom Houghton speak to that from engineering.
Hi, Mr. Supervisor. So that is technically correct. The purpose of this item is just to clarify how we're actually measuring the wall. Right now, you can have a wall that slopes up, slope backs down, could be 16 feet up here, but we're saying the average height of the wall can be no higher than 6 feet. So if a contractor gets creative, you could possibly make the average out to be 6 feet or less.
Right, so
Yes.
you could have a 1 foot and
Yeah,
a 10-foot,
for
whatever.
300 foot, and then 10 foot for a little portion. The average would then be, would meet.
Right,
town.
so you want to close that loophole.
Yes.
I understand it, but one of the problems we've been trying to solve is when, and it's largely when people are putting in these IA systems, that they have to build these retaining walls, and we have these giant walls right up against the neighboring property. So, there you are looking at this cement wall that's, 8 feet tall or 10
So
feet tall.
Our code
And-
does preclude any walls higher than 4 feet in the required front yard.
Okay, so, but now, hold on one second, John. So if you do a 4-foot retaining wall,
Yes.
and then are you required then to do a 4-foot fence on top? And are you allowed to do a solid fence, which would then create what looks like an 8-foot
I
wall?
believe you are allowed to do a fence in order to prevent any fall hazards from that wall.
Right, but can it be a transparent fence, or does it have to be a solid fence? Dennis, you understand, this is Dennis O'Rourke, our Chief Building Inspector.
The code requires that when you have a walking surface above 30 inches, you have to have a 3-foot guard, as they refer to it. It could be a glass retaining wall, it could be fencing material.
Can it be stepped back a foot or two, just to not create that, what feels again
It
like a
could step
big
back a
wall?
little bit, yeah. The whole intent is so someone's not walking along the top of that wall and
Falls over, right.
for safety reasons. And the whole deal with this is to make it simple for our inspectors to go out and measure the height of a wall. If we have to rely upon surveyors right now to survey the height of the retaining wall on the inside and the outside, and then we have to average them out. This way, we just go and measure
It's okay.
I don't know what that was. We just go and measure the highest point of the wall, and then we know what the height of the wall will be. It's fairly simple.
Right, but then you have the wall plus the fence, and that can create that feeling again of being up against a big wall. And I don't think there's a requirement for landscaping in front of the retaining wall either. So you could bring the retaining wall literally right up to the property line. So you could end up with an 8-foot wall there. We don't have to solve that issue today.
Yeah.
I understand you're trying to close the loophole, and it makes an awful lot of sense, because otherwise you can end up with this averaging. You can have an 8-foot retaining wall
Yeah.
and a fence on top of that.
We've seen that in the past, and
And
it's,
now you're, 12 feet, and you're the neighboring property, and you're looking at a wall like this next to
the
you.
hope is if you're exceeding the 6-foot height, like say you're in the side yard or rear yard, you would go to the zoning board of appeals, where your neighbors will have a chance to speak, have some influence on it, and the zoning board of appeals can approve some type of vegetation or screening that the building department can't, require at this point.
Yeah.
But most of our walls are reasonable, the ones for the health department.
Just seems to me if you're at 4 feet at the property line and you have to put a fence on top, you should step that fence back some.
We can encourage that.
Okay, well, we might want to do more than encouraging it, but we can do that on another day.
Yeah,
We
certainly.
might, any other
Yeah,
questions?
Dennis, along with that, if you had a 4-foot and then a tiered wall at another 4 foot, is there a setback for that? Is it 4 to 1, so it has to be 4 feet back?
Well, what generally happens, if you have a 4-foot wall, it'll be designed by a structural engineer. And then there'll be a 4-foot setback typically, where there'll be some planting or something,
Okay.
and then it'll come up again. It's supposed to look better with the planting, they usually have that step back going. To put a straight wall up more than 8 feet is tough, it's difficult. And, you have sliding, you have the water build up behind the wall and stuff like that. So, that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, aesthetically, it makes more sense, I think, to be able to plant in front of it and have 2 small walls rather than a big wall.
Yeah, it does, actually. So if they do go to the ZBA, they might be able to require that. Or we can look at that as we go forward to clarify the code. Because I do get a lot of complaints about the retaining walls.
I do too.
I know.
And some of them, they look like hell, these
Yeah.
giant walls up against the property lines.
Is this consistent in FEMA zones as well? Does the Suffolk County Health Department preempt us, our code, in FEMA zones with retaining walls? Like, if they call for a 6-foot wall on a property line around a property, can a homeowner put it in?
It depends on the flood zone that you're in.
Okay.
It typically becomes a problem in the VE zone, where you get the high-velocity wave action. So most of those septic systems, because they're on the ocean, Dune Road, are placed between the house and the street. That's where you get that wall all the time.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in on that because that was the question, the reason I asked Ms. Garvin to talk to the county health department was that the 2-foot groundwater separation issue that happens with septic systems should be relaxed with the new IA systems, and that was one of the things that I was hoping would come out of that. Right now, we still have to deal with that 2-foot to groundwater separation issue for now, but with the IA systems going in, the newer ones may not have to have that requirement, but that's something that we can deal with downstream. But that's one of the causes of that high wall
Yeah.
to deal with IA systems right now, is that separation.
I haven't gotten a final draft from the county as far as the new I systems are concerned. All I have is a draft revision. I don't know what the final law is.
Yeah, they haven't
So,
changed it yet.
I'll have to wait and see what they come up with. But there's going to be more IA systems coming around. And
No, and I think this law actually helps us do that because it makes it a lot clearer and it gives us a better ability to, it's clear for your inspectors to go out, which I think you said before, to help with those installations, so. And we're looking for ways to make that simpler because right now it's a complicated issue sometimes.
yeah, I mean, most of these walls do not look pretty, but we don't regulate pretty, unfortunately. That's for the
all
ARB or
relative.
the ZBA or something like that.
Be in trouble. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay. I don't have anybody who's indicated they wish to be heard at this public hearing. Is there anyone here who wants to be heard regarding these changes to the retaining wall regulations. You'll have to step up. You have to identify yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments known.
That's okay. My name is Dorothy Marino, and I just actually have a question about walls that are already existing. I happen to know that there is a 4-foot limit, because I have a 4-foot wall in the front of my house. However, there is at least one property that I know of that currently has at least a 10-foot retaining wall up. And I'm saying at least 10 foot because I know that he parks his dump truck in front of it, and it is well above the dump truck. This is, while it's in the back and side of his property, it is visible from my property because he's behind me. And nothing's being done about it because unfortunately he has too many friends. It has been reported, several different things have been reported about what's going on at that property. But
So maybe, after the meeting, you can provide me with the address, and I can talk to code enforcement about that, if it truly is a retaining wall that's not permitted. Now, remember, the 4 foot is the height for the front yard. Side yards maybe 6 feet. That's legal. 10, I don't know, unless there's a variance involved, or maybe it's up
Well,
on a hill.
what I was
Something.
concerned about was that he had said about there being a hearing so that the neighbors could discuss whether or not they wanted them to build a taller wall, and I was never notified of that happening.
Right.
And I know that the neighbors weren't either, because we're all pretty upset about the way that it looks. So yeah, I was just kind of curious if you make these changes, if something isn't done about this prior to that, if that means that, he's pre-existing and that, it's not going to have to come down.
It's a great question. So, something that's pre-existing and lawful would be able to stay, would not be affected by this law.
Right.
So if somebody had an 8-foot wall, legal, got their variances or whatever it is, or it complied with the code,
And an
at the
8-foot.
time got a building permit for it, built, no, this will not make them lower it.
Right.
It's prospective, so it's going to apply to every new one. But if the person built it without the benefit of a permit, they have no grandfathered right to it, and it would have to come into compliance potentially with the new law.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Katie, do you want to add anything to that? Did I say it? No, I'm asking the attorney, because I don't like to play attorney here, so was that?
No, what you said is totally correct, and the only thing I would add is that it's possible, but that retaining wall, as being averaged, is actually 5 feet tall. So that's the problem. That's what we're trying to address. That language in the code allows for this averaging, which I don't think anybody ever, contemplated.
Yeah.
I think they were hoping people were stepping them back, so that you wouldn't, take advantage of this strange.
Right, so if there's a 1-foot retaining wall somewhere else,
Yeah, I mean, that's why. And that's why there's so many people that complain, and
yeah,
sometimes.
so this won't fix that, right? That's protected.
Yeah,
under
it
the
won't
old code.
fix one that exists, unless, like you said, it didn't have a building permit, because then it was built, unlawfully, and then it's got to come down, and if this gets adopted, then it has to comply. But if they had a building permit, which is likely, you don't typically see people coming in specifically for a building permit for the retaining wall. You see them coming in for the tennis court or the swimming pool, and then the retaining wall is
Now,
part of
that
it.
averaging does not apply to fences, only to retaining walls.
Correct.
So if it's a fence and not a retaining wall, then it would be unlawful.
Correct.
Because what's the max height? 6 on a side yard?
Side and rear 6, yep.
6. Okay. And you were saying it's a retaining wall, though, right? Okay. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Right. Anyone else from the public? All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is closed, and we move on to the public hearing that I think most of you are here for. Madam Clerk, would you read the public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 4, to consider authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund, CPF, parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.28 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton.
All right, thank you. Before I kick things over to Deputy Town Attorney Kathleen Murray, just a word or two about this. So our planning department has long been recommending the creation of a additional route for traffic to flow and emergency vehicles to use in Hampton Bays that would extend Good Ground Road to Route 24 or to Montauk Highway. We looked at a number of possible places where that road could come out, and the only logical place it could possibly come out is at the regularized intersection there by Macy's, Panera, and the one that everyone is familiar with. The problem is that the diner is smack in the middle of where the road would need to come out, and the diner has fallen into disrepair, and the owners recognize that the building will have to get torn down at some point, and a new use will occur there. So it's sort of taking the opportunity to say, well, maybe the diner property could shift over a little bit and make room for the road. The problem with doing that is that the property next door was purchased in part with Community Preservation Fund monies, which creates a parkland alienation issue to do that. So we went to the state, and the state allowed us the ability to alienate that in exchange for creating some additional parkland. Once the diner shifted over, we still have a problem with the back portion of that property too, which would have to be alienated. So we're doing that sort of in one fell swoop here. So by cleansing the entire piece, and then this is a way for the commercial property owners of the diner to retain a same-size piece of property, and it gives the town in the future the ability, if it ever wants to create this road, the ability to do so. Right now, there is no ability to do it because although it's in many planning documents, the town simply doesn't own the strip that you would need to create this road. So Kathleen will show you on the aerials where this is, and it's just basically a process. When you alienate a piece of parkland, particularly CPF parkland, not only do you have to go to the New York State legislature, which has approved this, but you also have to do a public referendum. And if the board moves forward with this, there would be a public vote in November at the regular election where the public could decide whether it was accepting this cleansing of this property for the purposes of being able to create this road in the future. So, Kathleen?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Again, good afternoon, members of the Town Board. As you may recall, and as discussed at the last Town Board meeting, on February 25th, 2020, by local law number 1 of 2020, the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District was adopted. The purpose of this optional overlay district is to make mixed use and compact development possible within a form-based code, which includes a significant amount of design and renewable energy requirements to achieve the vision set forth by the community. Notably, the implementation of the overlay district represents years of planning for economic development within the Hampton Bays downtown area, which will complement Good Ground Park and serve as a catalyst for both investment and revitalization in the area. To that end, the extension of Good Ground Road is recommended by the town's SECRA assessment in order to provide a relief valve for traffic pressure on Main Street and to serve as an alternative emergency route. Thus, the purpose of the local law before you is to authorize the town to make a necessary land swap in order to achieve these purposes. Specifically, the town seeks to alienate and discontinue as parkland 153 West Montauk Highway, which is approximately 2.9 acres in furtherance of the extension of Good Ground Road. And that's this parcel right here. In exchange, the town proposes to encumber and dedicate as parkland 20 South Valley Road in the hamlet of Hampton Bays, which is approximately 13.28 acres. And that's this piece right here.
Is that second map upside down, or?
Nope.
It's okay? Oh, it's all right? Okay, I got it.
Yeah, that's the,
That's fine. Where's Montauk Highway in that? Oh, it's beneath, okay.
it's down at the bottom.
Way down along the water.
Right along
Okay,
the,
got
right
it.
along the bay. Yeah.
I see it now. Thank you.
By swapping the CPF parcel, that is 153 West Montauk Highway, with the proposed parcel, that is 20 South Valley Road, the town is cleansing that parcel, so to speak, and removing any CPF and parkland restrictions that were initially placed on it, and that's as it relates to this parcel. By doing this, the town can then take steps towards subdividing this parcel and swapping the top portion of this parcel eventually with the adjacent diner parcel. The town could then construct the proposed road through the former diner property and then 153 West Montauk Highway. And that's shown a little bit on this map, if you can see it. Because the town seeks to alienate and discontinue lands purchased with CPF monies pursuant to New York State Town Law 64E10 and Town Code 140-7, the alienation is subject to 3 conditions. The first condition is the express authority of an act of the state legislature. The second is the adoption of this local law by a 4/5 or supermajority of this town board. And the final condition is the approval of this local law at a mandatory referendum to be held at the November 2nd general election. As it relates to condition number 1, and as the supervisor indicated a bit earlier, an act of the state legislature is being pursued in that Assembly Bill A 6668B and Senate Bill S 5985B were passed in both the Assembly and the Senate on June 8th. So we are simply waiting for the governor to sign those bills. And as it relates to the third condition, that is the mandatory referendum, as I've indicated before, just from a timing perspective, any ballot proposition for the November 2nd general election must be delivered to the Suffolk County Board of Elections no later than August 2nd with a Spanish translation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and as you may note, your Planning Director, David Wilcox, and your CPF Manager, Lisa Comberg, are also here to answer any questions that you may have.
The piece, the CPF piece, the long rectangular piece, when that was acquired by the town, that's the one sort of between the diner and what used to be Friendly's. Now I think it's like Salvatore's, it has a different name. CPF only paid a portion of that, right? About a third of it at best, and it was sort of, the understanding might be that the piece along Montauk Highway was going to be, forever green. How did it end up that the entire piece became parkland?
Well, you're correct, Mr. Supervisor. The authorizing resolution for the initial purchase of this parcel does have different funding sources, only one of which is CPF. However, we have learned, pursuant to our conversations with the state assemblyman, that because there was no meets and bounds designation for the expenditure of those monies as it relates to this parcel, and because they were commingled, so to speak, we have to now cleanse the entire parcel, because we can't really identify on this parcel which portion was purchased with CPF monies and which portion was purchased with others. So it's only appropriate to cleanse the entire parcel.
Okay. So it's in a sort of an abundance of being careful.
Correct.
Okay.
Can you just define mandatory referendum in lay terms for people who may not know what that means?
Sure. It means that when you vote at the general election on November...
You meaning everybody
Everybody in the town
voter.
of Southampton. So if you live within the town of Southampton and you vote within the town of Southampton, presumably you will show up on November 2nd to vote at the general election. You will have a ballot proposition. There will be a question for you, usually on the opposite side of the initial ballot, that you turn over and you answer yes or no to. And if this gets adopted today, then this question would be on the ballot for you to answer yes or no. Do you think that the local law authorizing this land swap should be allowed?
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, a simple majority of that vote carries the day.
Thank you.
Right, and then if the town board or some future town board moves to construct the road, there'd actually be 2 steps. So
Yeah.
if this is approved in November, we'd have a separate vote on the swap
Yes.
to create this new property for the diner.
Right.
And then after that, the town then would have the necessary pieces to put the road together. This town board or some future town board would have a separate vote then on to create the road, which would require some sort of public bond likely.
Capital project, correct. So there's a couple of steps that would have to happen after this in order to realize this road. As the supervisor indicated, if the ballot proposition passed, then the town would have to subdivide this parcel, which is now cleansed of any restrictions, but is still town-owned. And you'd have to subdivide that. Then you'd have to swap it with the diner, and then you would have to pass a capital project authorizing the construction of this road. So there are several more steps that would have to happen if there was a willingness on the part of the town board.
One other thing I want to point out, and Kathleen, maybe it would help if you point to that diagram. So if this all happened and this new road is constructed, the piece just to the west of where the new road would be, which would not be Diner property anymore, nor would it be Parkland property, I think it's the town board's intention to keep that piece green, right? So that would be, potentially the place where the Welcome to Hampton Bays sign goes, or some of the other things that people have asked about. And then the back portion of the road, which goes through but where the turn is, basically, would be no longer parkland. It was questioned whether it was parkland, but the balance of that piece would also remain green, I believe, right? Even though it's no longer parkland. So this is basically would be a wooded road throughout, with the one exception of the future Diner property, the commercial lot on the corner. Okay. All right.
And Kathleen, nothing in the wording of this says we have to do anything with that,
Correct.
right? It's up to the board in the future what we're going to do with it.
Correct, Councilman Martell. There are other steps that would have to happen. This would be the first of those, but there are others.
And those other steps would need public hearings.
Absolutely. Certainly, the subdivision would be before your planning board, and then any swap would have to be fair, and it would have to be appraisals that showed fair and adequate consideration, so that you're not gifting anything to a private entity. And then because it's simply town property, whenever you want to lease or dispose of town property, that's subject to a permissive referendum, which means you'd basically have to wait 30 days before actually having that closing date, so that if people wanted to object, they could petition to put something on the ballot. And then after that, you would have a resolution before you to consider the capital project of the construction of the road, and that would typically not part of a public hearing, but also subject to permissive referendum.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to speaker cards. I have quite a number. They are ordered in the order by which people filled out the cards. And we afford each speaker 3 minutes to make their comments known. We ask you to be brief. If somebody has already said the exact same thing, you could repeat it, or you could also say, I agree with that other person. The clerk will let you know when you're down to your last 30 seconds, and you can sort of wrap up. So we're going to start with, I'm going to announce the speaker and who's on deck. That will allow you to basically queue up, so we don't have to wait in between for people to find their way to the edge of the aisle. All right, so Greg Small, followed by Joseph Florentine.
Yes.
Okay.
And even though I've called you by name, when you get up to the podium, for our records, we'd just like you to identify yourself once again.
Okay. My name is Gregory Small, and I live in Hampton Bays. I would like to begin by saying that I support the town's initiative to install the road extension at the intersection of Montauk Highway and Route 24 in order to reduce traffic and pressure along Montauk Highway through Hampton Bays. This relief valve will mitigate traffic pressure through the center of town and provide an alternate route for residents who live, travel, and work to the south and east portion of Hampton Bays. We all love the diner, but unfortunately, after approximately 5 long years, it appears that the economics just did not make sense here. It's sad, but dwelling on the past hinders our future. We can look at this as a loss, or we can try to use this opportunity to benefit our community. As they say, every cloud has a silver lining. Ignoring or opposing this opportunity to alleviate traffic pressure through the middle of town and provide the residents, their guests, and those employed in those areas with an alternative path would be a huge miss. We all love the charm and character that lies at the heart of Hampton Bays, but its infrastructure, economy, and character are crumbling. It seems like we talk about things, but for one reason or another, we get very little done. To preserve what we love about Hampton Bays, we must maintain, nurture, and evolve our town in a way that addresses its needs, the needs of its residents, and also the needs of its patrons. We need infrastructure updates and enhancements, and we need to accomplish them in a logical and mindful way. Once again, I am in favor of improving our small-town infrastructure by adding the road extension to the south through the diner property. I feel that we are fortunate to have this opportunity to provide a much-needed outlet that alleviates some of the traffic congestion on Montauk Highway. Thank you for your time and giving me this opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Small. Thank you. All right, Joseph Florentine will be followed by Kevin McDonald.
I filled out the card, so if my wife got here on time, she'd be able to speak.
Smart man.
So I'm actually bypassing the bypass.
Go ahead. You want to turn it over to your wife?
Well done.
Well, we are against the bypass. I'm against it. We are for many reasons.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
Yeah, your name.
Lorraine Florentine.
Thank you.
Okay. For many reasons. The amount of trees being cut down in Hampton Bays, to me, is enormously ridiculous. I have a quarter acre across from me that a variance was granted for a house. Every tree was cut down, 100-year-old trees. A variance was granted for it. It shouldn't have been done. This is just too many trees gone, and you call it parkland. And parkland should be parkland. And now you're going to say, well, I'm giving you 13-point-something acres in, it's not in the hamlet, it's way down past the canal. I looked where it is. It's not even near Hampton Bays, really. So to me, it's not a swap. And the alleviation of the traffic, we have Sunrise Highway, that alleviates it. That little bit is going to cause even more problems. You get to the end of to where Ponquag is, and you try to make a left there. After that, this is done, you'll never get out of there. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think this is it. Cutting down trees, making a huge path through Hampton Bays, and ruining the aesthetics that does exist. I don't know how many people feel about how they feel about the diner, but that should have been refurbished way back when. Everyone loved the diner. The diner was an icon. You pulled into Hampton Bays, turn left at the diner, turn right at the diner. And now again, Hampton Bays takes another hit. And it brings tears to my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin McDonald followed by Amy Paradise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor and members of the Town Board. I'm Kevin McDonald. I'm speaking today only on behalf of the Hampton Bays Civic Association Board, and I'd like to share with you the conversation that a few of us have had over the last few months on this proposal. This is slightly vexing. It's a little complicated, and it is a piece of a puzzle in a quilt of other complicated issues facing the hamlet, and I think the presence of everybody here is demonstrating what some of those are. But there are a few facts still matter, that are, sort of present. One is this property is either going to be vacant forever in its present form, it will be redeveloped into something that everybody's used to seeing more or less on County Route 58 than they are in the hamlet, and there's another option which you guys are advancing. So, the choices are, how does it work for the hamlet? How does it work for the community? A few things stand permanent and fixed in the minds of the Civic Association Board, and that is, we want to revitalize downtown. We want it around the park. We want it around the infill of the development that your form-based code was supposed to address. And part of that is a pedestrian-friendly downtown that functions, not one that is overrun by cars. So part of our concern with this proposal is you have to get to the first question, that Route 24 extension is a good public policy outcome, before you get to the second question, which is a swap a good way to effectuate that? And we're still grappling with the second question, and even somewhat the first question. But one thing we're real clear about, this project, and I don't mean to suggest this is easy, right? But this project alone is somewhat confusing to folks because they go, we don't get it. How does this really do much? And if it does do much, not enough by what anybody else sees. And we all happen, a moment of humility. We're all convinced because we drive or take a bus or take a train occasionally that we're all traffic engineers. We know how to move people efficiently and effectively, and we're as good as anybody else who does this for a living. And I know I'm not, but I'm just saying that's the impulse, right? So the concern is that if you did do the Route 24 extension of Good Ground Road, and you included the roundabout, the double-lane roundabout that had been talked about in some of the other earlier Hamlet study plans, that would make more sense to some folks about taking a light away, having traffic all going in one direction. Rather, we all know that roundabouts are more safer than head-on collisions that happen in traffic circles. So taking traffic lights away in the hamlet is a good idea. Putting roundabouts in place of those is a good idea. And then the other part of the conversation that did happen is the discussion of putting a double-lane roundabout at the canal side, which right now everybody knows that's not working. Whatever the design was at the boathouse, when people see there's another transportation plan being made.
You mean a double-lane roundabout there or a single-lane roundabout?
Well, single or double, whatever you could fit, right?
But right now, it's single roads in all directions, right? Single lanes.
Just like the one in Riverhead. 2 lanes, 1 turns, 1 goes around.
Not at that spot.
Right at Peconic Bay Hospital.
Well, that's a 4-lane highway, right? So you need a 2-lane roundabout.
Jay,
Okay.
let's not get into that detail right now.
Well, I understand. I
You're eating my
happen to
time.
agree with you. At the boathouses, we need a roundabout.
Right,
That
right.
intersection is a mess.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we need a roundabout. I'll leave it to others to design what it is. I look forward to drawing that with you at another time. So if you said we're going to do 2 roundabouts, and we're going to do more pedestrian-friendly, and we're going to do a friendlier downtown business district like part of Southampton Village did, just right on Main Street here, and then remarkably, I know you've all been there, West Hampton Village went really big. They put the electrical lines underground, the downtown business district with a sewer, right? We're thinking about that for Hampton
Roundabout,
Bays.
yeah.
All of this comes together, right? So when you say, we're just doing a Route 24, we're going to do a land swap, people are like, how does this relate to the whole thing? So I think you got to sell the big picture. You got to sell the big vision. I think most people will go for it. And then you got to explain how the pieces work. And we're in the process of trying to evaluate.
Can we respect the speaker? The talking is interrupting the speaker, and the speaker is also speaking on behalf of a larger organization, so. Yes, he is. He's speaking on behalf of the civic, so.
So we're in the process of evaluating all that, but everything I just mentioned, the roundabout, the other roundabout, the Route 24 extension, has been part of a number of planning efforts in the last 25 years I've been involved in. So, but the question is, how does it all come together and how do you make it work? So, if you had the time, I'd say take it to make sure the community feels good about the direction you're going. I feel bad that, people are going to feel the pressure, we have to make a decision. I don't know what to tell you about that, other than the board is still making that evaluation. But think big is our principal objective, and it can't just be one small piece as part of this puzzle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. So, before we get on to the next speaker, I find the sidebar conversations very distracting. I have trouble hearing the speaker. I don't want somebody interrupting you when you speak. So please, can you comport yourself in a manner appropriate to this and give the speaker your full attention? Whether you everybody has strong feelings about this. That's fine. Whether you agree or disagree, allow the speaker to be heard, and you'll have your turn to be heard as well. And I will protect your right to say what you want to say, as much as whether I agree with the person or not. So, Kevin McDonald spoke. We're going to move on.
Kevin, were you representing the Civic or the CAC?
Civic, he said.
Civic Association Board only.
Thank you.
Okay, now Amy Paradise is next. Amy will be followed by Geraldine Spinella.
Hi there. I presume you all read the email that I sent?
Of course.
Okay, so in addition to that, I basically sent him an email that said that I oppose, you can't talk about the parkland without, I called it the bypass around town, because the first step is leading to the next, and I oppose it, not because I'm opposed to improving traffic, but because building roads like that never improves traffic. More roads, more traffic, more congestion. We've done this thousands of times. New York, Los Angeles, where I lived in Maryland, all over the place. It doesn't solve the problem. So, and also, we're ignoring the senior citizens here. If they go this road, this isn't the greatest location. It's right next to the railroad. Right now, there's a nice cover of trees at least between the.
So, Amy,
It's gonna be gone.
I understand talking to the crowd, I understand using the
Just
poster, but we're recording and we're broadcasting on television, and
Oh.
you're not being heard to the rest of our.
I'm sorry.
So-
Okay, I spoke to the residents there. I went and I talked to 21 out of 28 residents. I have 19 signatures that agree with this. We oppose the creation of the bypass in Hampton Bays. It will negatively affect our quality of life with noise, lighting, and traffic virtually in our homes. Second of all, I've also seen, I know the overlay is law. We're going to do this. You're going to turn the downtown into a big, busy place. You have to redo traffic. It's time to reimagine the whole situation, not just the middle of town. Montauk Highway, Ponquag, Springville, the whole thing. When I think about moving the traffic, I don't just think about taking it a little bit off. This is a very rough diagram of what I would do. You improve Old Riverhead Road from Red Creek out to Montauk, and then you've got a one-way thing. You've got to divert traffic so it flows out that way. You've got to make Montauk Highway one-way in either direction. I know what you said. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've seen what they do in these places. You take some of the traffic off so that you get what is in town is people who want to be in town doing things in town, and as much as possible, you take the through traffic around. The furthest you can go is like Katrinka's Jelly anyway, because you've got the bridge over the canal, unless we're four-laning Montauk Highway. So I've only got 3 minutes. I made this silly little sketch, but it kind of suggests something. I've heard a lot of nonsense about, not nonsense, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, about beach traffic. This would take beach traffic straight down Ponquag, around to the beach. When it comes back, it would either choose it's going this way, out, or it's going that way, out. And in the meantime, people on Fanning Avenue, I've been hearing from, are tired of being used as a bypass. So you've got to probably one way a couple of these cross streets, like Fanning, Lynn Avenue, Bay Avenue, in opposite directions. That's what they do. When you've got this little town, you've got a congested area, the whole thing has changed. You have to reimagine all the traffic. A piecemeal approach like this, down the road, it's a nightmare. It'll cost you more and more and more money to solve the problems that you haven't solved in the first place. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Amy. All right, so Geraldine Spinella is up, followed by Kelly McHulty. I apologize in advance for all the names I'm going to mispronounce, but some of the handwriting is not so easy to read. But I think it's Kelly McNulty. All right, Geraldine, you're next.
Yes, Geraldine Spinella, resident of the hamlet of Hampton Bays. Losing my voice. Is it possible to point exactly on here what piece of this land is the parkland that you want to swap for the diner property?
So if you look at the one to the left, keep going, one more. And you'll see the highlighted rectangle.
Okay.
So-
So that's between Salvatore's restaurant?
Yes.
And so you, okay.
So- and so-
It's this whole piece?
That whole piece, initially, the community preservation funds were used to, I believe, purchase the portion closest to the highway, and the back portion was supposed to be for municipal uses, but they never did a full subdivision, so now we have to cleanse the whole thing. But I don't think the intention of the town at the time was ever to make the whole thing parkland, but they messed up.
Well-
commingling the funds.
It, is all of the land that's purchased by CPF funds able to, it's open to alternate use at the whim of the board or the town or anyone, so that it doesn't get preserved as a green property? Can it just be, well, we need it for something else, because I guess this wouldn't have been a great park here anyway? So what is the basis behind that, saying, let's take parkland, give it to the diner people, and did they approve taking it? I mean, I would, I guess, because it's a bigger piece of property, but,
No, they're not going to get the whole piece.
so they're not getting the whole piece?
Oh, no.
But did they agree to this type of a swap, where they lose that and they get something over here that has nothing but trees that they've got to build on?
In principle, yes, that they would, as long as they get the same amount of acreage, they would then be on a corner, so that's an advantage. You know, the folks who own the diner are, pay taxes every year. It's quite a bit of taxes on it. And they have been very patient, trying to understand what the town's plans are and needs are, and going through a process with us. Yeah, there is an assumption at the end, if all this falls into place, that their property, some of their current property will continue to be theirs, and they'll end up with the same size piece. So there's a bit of an overlap there. I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
No,
I
I get it, but then,
They're not getting that whole rectangle.
they're not getting this whole thing.
No, just a portion of it near the highway, and they're retaining some of their current property.
But it, but it's
Geraldine,
still,
if you
it's-
could,
but
and
it's
everybody
still-
else, can you talk into the mic? 'Cause
But it's still funds that were generated from property sales that were to preserve land not to ever be developed. So now you're taking something that is in that little box that's to be preserved, and you're saying, well, we want to put a road here, and we need to swap some property around in order to accomplish it, which makes sense. So let's just take something that was being preserved and unpreserve it legally and swap it for other property. Then it now becomes developed. It's not that, does the CPF fund take any property? Because usually it's areas that would be great as a park, or their waterfront, or their wetlands, or their a parkland type property. This doesn't look like it ever would have been, because it's right there on the highway between businesses. I don't know if you'd stick a little park there. I mean, who's going to walk in and just want to sit right there on the highway? So it's,
There's different kinds of-
what is it? So it's just any kind of property could wind up in that fund, and then it becomes some other use because it's not really parkland? I mean, how does that, I think everybody would like to know how that actually happens.
Well, it's a multi-step onerous process to alienate parkland. It requires an act of the state legislature, assembly, senate, signed by the
No,
governor.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we understand that part, that it can be alienated.
not easy
But
to
it gets
do.
it gets itself into a preservation mode, and then it's just taken out and made something else with legal steps. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And also, I agree with everyone that has said already that this is not going to alleviate any type of traffic in town. It's going to alleviate 2 blocks that have restaurants that probably would like the traffic. What you need to do is put signs up on Sunrise Highway that say, no trucks this exit unless it's a local delivery. Because I'm on East Tiana Road. Don't even try to tell me about people going to the beach. That's the major shortcut.
Right.
They cut off right there, and it's nonstop traffic all summer. And at all times, starting early in the morning, it's contractors, it's heavy equipment. All the reflectors along my property are run over continually. It's ridiculous. It's become very heavy commercial traffic. So what happens is, if someone gets off the Montauk Highway to avoid traffic, they're creating traffic on the residential roads, and as far as they can get is Lynn Avenue, then they've got to make a left, and they're back on Montauk Highway in order to go over the canal. There is no other way over that canal unless you consider a ferry. You ferry all this traffic over to the other side. But it's just, we still have a one-lane road. Whatever you start to do, it's not alleviating anything. The traffic is ridiculous. At 4 o'clock today, from Southampton, I don't know how many employees there are that work for the town. It takes sometimes an hour to get from here to Hampton Bays if you're unfortunate enough to leave at 10 after 4 from Southampton. So you can see it yourselves. You're here. How do you think that putting a street through here that brings a lot more traffic onto Springville to go into the community is going to make a big plus for the life and the peace and quiet of the residents that live in that area. It's all residential. So that's all I can say is I think that there has to be a better plan. And I know you're going to do a sewage treatment system for the overlay district, for all the additional housing. I would assume if you're going to do a lot of developing in this area, you would need
30 seconds.
sewage as well. So I don't know if that's part of the development that you'd want to have here. Would you be putting it there? We don't really know where it would be. I know you hired someone to come up with a plan, but I surely hope that that sewage treatment, once it's treated, isn't going into Tiana Bay. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, Kelly McNulty, followed by Patrick Perry.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kelly McNulty. I'm a resident of Hampton Bays for over 35 years. I live on Suffolk Road, and I understand the dilemma that the board and the entire community faces with the traffic issue that we have. I myself traveled east for many, many years from Hampton Bays. I know how difficult it is and how frustrating it is for everybody. Everybody's trying to make a living, trying to get their employees to work on time. It's not easy. The problem with Hampton Bays is that Montauk Highway is Main Street. Southampton, Main Street is not Montauk Highway. West Hampton, who did a wonderful job in renovating their downtown, it's not Montauk Highway, it's Main Street. Unfortunately, Hampton Bays, Montauk Highway is Main Street. I would suggest that we look at whatever the plan that you're developing for the future to do some sort of alternative location, perhaps right behind Main Street where Good Ground Road is, which is basically parking lots, and turn that into a nice downtown area and let Montauk Highway be Montauk Highway for people traveling east or west, wherever they need to go. I'm completely against this plan. Living on Suffolk Road, I've lived there for 21 years. I've seen the traffic in the morning at 6:30 until about 9 increase 1,000-fold. It's a small residential road. My daughter is 13. She's a walker to the elementary school and the middle school. She'll probably be a walker to the high school as well. So when she walks to school at 7:30 in the morning, when everybody and their landscapers and all their employers, which I understand, have to get to work, guess what she's walking with? Traffic. And if you put this there, what you're going to do is funnel. You're going to open up something, which I get, but they got to go somewhere if they're trying to get east. Waze, all those apps tell them where the best route is. If you look at 8 o'clock in the morning, you take a screenshot of Waze of the downtown area of Hampton Bays, you'll see Fanning Avenue, Argonne Road, and Canoe Place Road in front of Rumba dead stopped. Okay? So you're just helping that. You're going to get the traffic going down here. They're going to come into a light right there by the railroad tracks, right next to the post office. They're going to sit in their wait. Now you got railroad tracks, you got the crossing guards coming down. That's going to cause issue. It already does. I can tell you when the train comes when I go through town because it's backed up everywhere. And then the people are just going to take all the other little residential side streets, which they're already doing anyway. I have friends that live west. They come down Dune Road to get east. They come down Tiana Road. They come down Suffolk Road. All the little east-west roads in Hampton Bays, that's where they go, but they end up, the problem is, there's only one way over the canal. And until we solve getting over the canal in an efficient way, this is going to be our problem. You're not helping. I don't want my daughter walking to school every morning with all that traffic. There's no sidewalks on Springville Road, and there's no sidewalks on any of those east-west little roads in Hampton Bays within the walking distance of the school, okay? Shore Road, they all come down Shore. Have you ever driven down Shore Road in Hampton Bays? It's atrocious, it's full of potholes, but everybody does it because it's a little bit of a help, and this is just going to do the same thing. It's just not a good solution. I understand the dilemma, but until we figure out a way to get people over the canal, it's not, that's what you need to do, somehow. I don't know how, but you're just pushing the traffic into the residential area. It's not going to help. It's going to make it worse. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kelly McNulty. I live on Suffolk Road in Hampton Bays.
All right, so Patrick Perry is next, followed by Lynn Restivo.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Perry. I live in Hampton Bays. I just make this real short and sweet. This is not going to alleviate anything. All it's going to do is you're going to create more of a backup on Good Ground Road and Ponquag Avenue. Once they get to Ponquag, they're going to be sitting in that traffic light forever. They're going to make a right, go down Fanning, go down Oregon, or they're going to make the right on Springville and come down Suffolk Road. Kelly, my wife, is right. This traffic in the morning is horrendous. I watch it all the time. This is not going to alleviate everything. The only way to alleviate it, which is right, is to get it over the canal. Not going to happen. So I don't know what the answer is, but this is not the right way to go. That's it. Thank you.
All right, Lynn Restivo is next, followed by Eugene Carty.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lynn Restivo. I live in Hampton Bays, and the extension is a bad idea. As everybody preceded me had mentioned the traffic, it's well known everywhere that Hampton Bays is a bumper-to-bumper. On top of the fact that trying to get over the canal is a problem, it's also been compounded now by the townhouses that are on the east side of the canal, and now the CPI, which is getting refurbished, and the houses that are getting redone there, and more townhouses that will then funnel onto Montauk. I have to agree with one of the preceding speakers that you should have no commercial traffic to come into Hampton Bays, unless, of course, it's a plumber who has to go to a specific house, electrician. But basically, the overall traffic should really go on to Sunrise until either you do another extension on Sunrise going east to widen it, but you're always going to have the same problem. Everything is going to have to funnel down eventually into what's manageable for going forward and going east. We have way more people now that live out here, especially since the pandemic, who have bought homes and decided to live out here year-round. The extension is not going to do a thing. I come along Red Creek Road, and I am always going with the traffic that ends up having to bypass going through town to Newtown to Canoe Place Road. Then you have Old Riverhead Road going under the overpass of Sunrise, back onto Old Riverhead Road and trying to go that way. Then you have people that are on Squiretown Road, crossing over Montauk onto Ponquag, then taking Fanning Avenue or any other road, taking them down to Lynn Avenue, then coming back to try and make the right turn, because in New York State you can make a right turn unless it specifically says you can't, and back onto Montauk Highway. This isn't going to do anything, and that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
All right, Eugene Carty, followed.
Everything's been said. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eugene. All right, Kelly King is then next, followed by Dorothy Marino.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Kelly King. I live in Hampton Bays, and I'd like to start by a couple of sentences that were written in the May 2008 Hampton Bays Corridor Strategic Plan. It was a prediction under the heading of Transportation Planning and Intersection Design. You can find it on page 34. Very interesting reading, that corridor. It says, However, the mitigating effects on Montauk Highway traffic of the recent Route 39 lane additions further to the east, i.e. encouraging eastbound traffic to stay on Route 27 as opposed to Montauk Highway, could reduce traffic through the intersections and increase roundabout feasibility. Well, as we know in Hampton Bays, that extra lane on Route 39 didn't help anything in Hampton Bays whatsoever. Too many of the commercial vehicles in the morning get off at the Hampton Bays exit and go right through Hampton Bays. But if there's any kind of delays, and lots of these guys just do it by habit because I can recognize the cars. I live on the Fanning Avenue bypass. Yeah, they turn at Springville, they come down Good Ground, they make a right left onto Fanning. Some of them go to Argonne, but most of them go right left to Fanning, and then they back Canoe Place Road up all the way to Fanning, all the way up Fanning, really, sometimes to Wakeman. It's even backed up till. It's crazy. By the way, my traffic expertise would say that change the light at the corner of Montauk and Canoe Place and give those people like 8 minutes heading east. Then you got 30 seconds to get out of there. And that would be just us, because we would know you're just going to have to bring a book, sit there, read it for a few minutes, and then you'll be able to head east. But it'll keep everybody else off of Fanning and Argonne and all the rest of the roads around there. It's really terrible. And I mean, I appreciate people who live on East Diana and Shore and Suffolk. I use those roads a lot. But when Hampton Bays residents come into Hampton Bays from East Quogue, they know to turn at East Diana and go home. Or maybe take the road all the way to Springville and turn and go home. They don't need that extra little turn at the diner, this new bypass proposed, to make that extra few hundred yards just to get to Springville. That really is unnecessary. If it's necessary for some type of new business that's going to be there, Marriott, Hilton, if they need something like an egress road out the back, I can understand that, but we could certainly make it with curves and speed bumps and such like that it wouldn't be encouraged at all for any other kind of commercial, anybody, to be pulling into the hotel parking lot to get over to Springville quicker. That could be just used for whatever that business is. So I can understand if it's needed for that. I certainly want it. I don't want to open up this can of worms. I'd love to see a Hilton or a Marriott. When people come to visit, they have no place to stay. They got to stay in Riverhead. You know, there's no large hotels around here. And just lastly, another part is we could do this soon. I don't see why this would have to wait. We implore you, people from Fanning Avenue and Argonne East, to make turns in the morning, just like you do at Shrubland, for those at 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or whatever it is, that you can't turn off to go into Shrubland, to go through all the golf courses and so on to get out east, that you can't turn down Ponquag and turn down Fanning and turn down Argonne or whatever else. You might have to extend it to Maryland Boulevard. I'm not even sure. But you can't turn down there just to get to Canoe Place Road quicker to wait for that light, okay? And you shouldn't want to, because it should be 8 minutes long. But anyway, that, and one extra little problem is that when the DOT, the Department of Transportation, sets up a post on Sunrise Highway, on one of the rest areas there by the canal, that then results in the 18-wheelers, the asphalt trucks, the cement trucks, all the real heavy equipment getting off. Well, they're supposed to stay on Sunrise Highway, obviously, but they get off, they get onto Montauk Highway, and because the bridge that goes over the railroad tracks on Montauk Highway, right past Katrinka, you know, you don't think of it as a bridge, just a hump, but it's a bridge. And there are trucks, there are R-permit trucks, those are the gigantic trucks. They're not allowed to go over that bridge now because it's faulty. It has to be fixed. And since they're not allowed to go over the bridge, they go to the Fanning Avenue bypass. So sometimes we have 4 or 5 asphalt 18-wheelers in a row in a convoy coming down only once a month,
Kelly, you got to finish up.
Okay, only once a month, but that's a major problem. So I'll just say that I'm afraid the extension would not be used so much by local residents as it would be abused by commuters heading east. Thank you.
All right, Dorothy Marino, you're next, followed by Marion Bowden.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Marino, and I am a 30-plus year resident of Hampton Bays, having lived both on the south side of the highway and the north side of the highway. I do appreciate all the traffic, not just in the mornings, but every single day of the week that comes through all of the side streets. I currently live on Old Riverhead Road West, and yes, that is another bypass road. They come off of 24 after being in a log jam there. Or they come off of Sunrise Highway looking like they're going to go towards Riverhead and instead come down Old Riverhead Road West. So we have a backup on our road in the morning as well. And if it's not backed up, then they're coming through the road doing 50, 60 miles an hour. So that makes it almost impossible to get out of my driveway. We have since learned that we have to come out of my driveway facing front so that we can hear what is coming around the turns. That road never should have been a 40-mile-an-hour road to begin with. That's another story. It's in my opinion that this bypass, that the swapping of the land isn't going to do anything for the residents of Hampton Bays other than make things worse. And I do agree and have been a staunch supporter for years of there being traffic circles rather than the current lights. That light down on Canoe Place Road is the major reason for the backup into the town of Hampton Bays. When we first moved to the north side of the highway, I had to travel with my son to the elementary school, which at times would take me 8 minutes to get through the Montauk Highway, Ponquag Avenue intersection because the cars, the trucks, the landscape vehicles, whatever, they would block the road. They don't care. They just block the road. The same thing happens over on Springville Road now. The same thing happens over on Ponquag Avenue now. By putting a bypass over there, it's only going to make it worse. As residents, yes, we know the back roads to take. But thanks to the introduction of Waze, other people know those bypasses as well, which my road happens to be one of them. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think that this extension road is the answer. And the other fear I have is what's going to happen to the rest of that land that is now going to become diner land. What are they going to do with it? Are they going to ask for some type of a zoning restructuring or whatever you want to call it and end up putting a strip mall over there, which is something else we don't need, because the last thing we need in Hampton Bays is another pizza place, nail salon, or hair or barber shop. So, that being said, I don't think I'm going to use all of my 3 minutes, but my opinion is this is not the answer. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Marion Bowden, followed by Gail Murcott.
Okay, Marion Bowden, Hampton Bays. And before I start, thank you for the park. I went to the first concert, and you were there, Rick Martel. And every time I go there, I get chills at how wonderful the town has been with that park. So thank you on behalf of Hampton Bays. And the other people in Southampton, we allow them in once in a while. You know? I know that this bypass plan was proposed quite some time ago, even decades ago, and I feel guilty coming forward at the last minute after so many people have put so much work in it. But it's always been unpopular with the residents, and every time it was brought up, it seemed to, so I thought it was dead in the water, so I really wasn't paying too much attention. And then, of course, we had COVID. You know, my head, everybody's head, I think, was elsewhere. And even at the town clerk's office, and I'm not knocking at Sunday because they're very good. I think it was a summer worker. When I called about the meeting, she said, oh, I think maybe they're live now in person. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of confusion even about what's been going on here. And then the other thing I just thought I'd mention is, you know, I was so uninvolved in what was going on in town that I think the only thing that got me through COVID was that I watched 4 complete seasons of Schitt's Creek. That was like, that was my salvation. So, but anyway, about the land swap, since that's the main thing on the agenda today. I thought that the land swap with properties were all going to be located right in the area, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another, and or at least immediately adjoining. And then when I read about the 2.9 acres already purchased with CPF funds being swapped for 13.2 acres in Shinnecock Hills, practically at the border of Southampton and outside Hampton Bays. And I think maybe even landlocked, but I'm not going to swear to that. And I'm going, like, this is the park, this is an exchange for greenery in a town that's it has the highest density of any place else in the town of Southampton, and we're taking it out of there and putting it in no man's land there. So that really bothered me. I said, like, what the heck? And the other thing is that CPF purchases, to the best of my knowledge, are supposed to be made after significant due diligence and part of a well-thought-out plan. And I don't think they're supposed to be something dumped into a CPF bank and used kind of willy-nilly. Well, I'm not saying willy-nilly, but, frequently. I think it's a dangerous precedent. If you start this, and this would be my horror, it probably would be impossible, but my horror is if you start doing this, what's to prevent you eventually from selling off the back 20 acres of good ground park to build a conference center or a hotel or something like that if we start switching things around? I'm really, really against it. Ballot proposition, unfair to Hampton Bays. It's a town-wide proposition. Do you think the average person in Watermill gives a you-know-what about a land swap? They're just going to say yes, unless we now get a major and an expensive campaign saying, say no, please. People, trust their government by and large, and they see something, we're going to swap this for that. Oh, we're going to swap 2 acres and get 13 in return. Yay. What do they know? So I think it's unfair. If it were a referendum just for the people of Hampton Bays, it would be a little bit different. Besides, I don't know what's going to take for people to realize this road is not really popular. People who live here realize it's not even a minor fix. It'll just make it easier to flood our more east-west residential streets, as many people have mentioned, which, for about half the day. I went east 2 or 3 weeks ago, 9 o'clock in the morning, which I usually try not to get up before, like noon, well, 10. But anyway, I got on at 9. I went up Wakeman, over Argonne, and went right onto Canoe Place Road. Traffic was backed up at 9, which isn't the peak hour, to Rumba. And then there were all these cars on Fanning, and we were alternate feeding. It took me, I wasn't timing it at the time, but I think at least 10 minutes, I'm being conservative, to get to Montauk Highway from Rumba. And now, I think we all realize who live in Hampton Bays, this new proposed road is going to make it easier for people to sneak down to, like, Fanning. And I went through Fanning yesterday and spoke to a few people there. Everybody was appalled. One person said to me, she works in a hospital in the city, and she's out here part-time, and she said in the morning when she could sleep to a decent hour, there's so much noise on Fanning, that she said it's noisier than where she lives in the city in the morning. She said it's gotten so bad, she's thinking of moving out. And that's only a few people on Fanning that I stopped, and that's just one street. There's no Hampton Bay solution. I think that is the bottom line. We're going to pay the price for the lack of traffic solutions, which are all east of the canal, all of them. They're backing up through Hampton Bays, and whether they go east or west or north and circuitously around and come out at CPR, there is not one solution to this traffic in Hampton Bays as far as I'm concerned. And that is the real story. I hate to see us spend money, and I know you've spent millions. I hate to see us spend more time on it. I don't think too many people here are happy about it. Somebody said there was a song, I'm not good at those rock songs, but something about a road to nowhere. Someone will know who it's from. But, and when I read the lyrics, some of them I didn't like, but some of them were very appropriate, they really were. And just to bring up West Hampton Beach for 1 second, their water table is completely different from ours, so I think it's like comparing apples to oranges. Also, they're a village, so they could get more control, I think, over growth and very locally than we can very locally because, we're a part of a town. We don't have a mayor. And someone else said that this will be developed like, if we don't buy and build this thing, it'll be developed like, I wrote it right down, will be developed like County Road 58. And I said, so. It's just like saying, someone said, oh, it'll look beautiful where the road would be. I say, you're going to vote for something just because it's going to look beautiful. How about, since the town owns the land, make it beautiful without the road? So anyway, I thank you for your for your time and attention.
All right, thank you,
And
Mary.
I hope you really consider this very, very, very seriously.
All right, so thank you. All right, Gail Murcott, you're next, followed by Angela Tenaglia.
Hi. My sister and myself, a third generation here. My grandparents built in 1932. There was quite a bit less traffic than there is today. That's why we enjoy the winters so much here. But in any case, a lot of people seem to be talking about Fanning, Argonne, all over there. We live off Newtown Road, and what we get is from Red Creek Park. They cut right through and, come down, and Newtown Road is a parking lot in the morning, and then they go up and go around to get back onto, cross the bridge. This proposal does nothing except dumps all of it, somewhere else. Just, it's not here, it's going here, it doesn't solve the problem. I'd just like to say that I think the only solution to the problem, not only, but I think pretty much the trade parade, they don't buy in Hampton Bays, they don't eat in Hampton Bays, and I realize they have to get to where they work and everything, but I think they need to stay on Sunrise Highway. And, there are many major roads that come off Sunrise. When you get into the town of Southampton, there was a new lane built for that, and I think cutting through Hampton Bays is not an answer at all. And I think we need to do what we can to try to keep them on Sunrise Highway. So, thank you. Back?
All right, Angela Tenaglia, followed by Margaret. Thank you.
Hi,
Friedlander.
thank you for having me. My name is Angela Tenaglia. I've been a resident of Hampton Bays for 43 years. And a lot of my concern and sentiment today will be repetitious, but I would like to draw attention to the fact that very concerned as well about the loss of wooded areas in Hampton Bays. Since I've grown up my entire life in the hamlet, I've watched wooded areas whittle away little by little by little. And just the thought of losing an additional parcel of wooded land is very concerning to me, regardless of what's going to go there, whether it's a road or another store or something. The fact that we're continually losing wooded land, and we seem to be very high density town right now compared to where we were 40 years ago. And for those of us that have lived here that long, have seen it happening. So that is a huge concern. I also have the same sentiment. Diverting the traffic just a mile to bottleneck it back out to Ponquag is going to create a problem. I live off of Lynn Avenue. I live at Fallow Court, and I walk my animals early in the morning. I'm a school teacher in Hampton Bays. I get out early, do some exercise. The traffic coming off of Dune Road all the way down Lynn Avenue on all of these sides roads is just insane in the morning. This is going to encourage that behavior. We know years ago there was an issue on the Old North Road, and that ramp was closed to alleviate the merging of traffic because it was backing up traffic onto Sunrise. So my feeling is that this will continue to happen. So I would be appreciative if Hampton Bays could have the consideration, much like Mr. King had spoke of the consideration of the neighborhoods on Sabonic Road, in Shinnecock, in the golf course area. Those roads were closed to the left. No lefts, no lefts, no lefts, because local residents were upset about the constant traffic flow. So I know we need a solution, but I think people in Hampton Bays would be more willing to listen to some solutions if, in addition to those solutions, there were some things put in place to protect some of our local roadways, if there were no lefts, if people couldn't do certain things. So I really feel like I understand that we need to move forward and have a great solution, but we need to have some assurances that our local roadways will be a little bit more secure, a little less traveled, and a little safer for people to walk on, whether it's for recreation, going to school, or simply just getting out and about in your front yard. Thank you for your time.
Right, Margaret Friedlander, followed by Vera Carter.
Hi. Vaccinated, just extra. Thank you for having this public hearing. My name's Margaret Friedlander. I live in Cormorant Point in Hampton Bays. I've been a resident of Hampton Bays since around 1994. I'm losing count. My profession is program management in advertising and marketing industry. I work with $200 million budgets, and I see you guys spend a lot of time and effort on, and I'm personally appreciative of all the efforts being made with the strategic overlay, because I've seen a big change in Hampton Bays, and I like the idea of bigger thinking. And I educated myself on smart growth and spoke with a couple of the committees. I've spoke with Maria Holtz at the Civic Organization. I'm involved with ECI. I was hoping to introduce myself to Kevin. We've talked on the phone a lot. So I'm starting to become more civically engaged because I now have a little bit more time to do that. Good news, bad news. But I agree with a lot of what everybody said, and I really just came here to get myself educated. I've read from end to end the overlay district plan. I've read the resolution online, so I'm one that gathers a lot of information and tries to become informed. But also as a resident, and I live on Lynn Avenue, and also experiencing what everybody's said, I just will reiterate, it's real, and I've seen the changes over the years from when I came. So my first encounter when I left my home was going down, by Rumba, Canoe Place, and all of a sudden, like I'm driving, and I follow the speed limits, unlike many, especially on Lynn Avenue, and I had to stop, and I said, what the hell's going on? And I was appalled at what my first encounter. Now it's an everyday occurrence, and I feel for people who have it worse than I do, especially those on Fanning. But I think my point is, it's not a solve, as I think everybody's mentioned, and I think they're all alternatives. And somebody mentioned Sabonic Road, because I couldn't remember the name of the road, again, when I first came out here, and they closed it to, anything but local traffic. They made roads one way. So I think there are alternate solutions. Thank you. And I think what I came here to understand is there a time limit on this? Is there a rush? What's the push? What puts the board on pause to say, we've heard everybody, there are legitimate concerns, because if it's really not honestly, at the end of the day, if it's not solving the problem, or it just becomes a domino effect of other things, especially because I know I'm waiting, Maria won't let me, to understand what's happening with water quality issues in town and the sewer, and there are a lot of big decisions going on that take into account, again, the overlay district and the bigger picture. But I think this deserves attention, but alternatively, agreed, there are some things we can't solve for, such as traffic, but you can put trucks and keep them on Sunrise Highway. You can keep a lot of traffic and commercial, especially big trucks. I mean, I'm near Lynn Avenue, and I could hear the trucks rumbling, because it's basically a highway now. Same with Ponquag. Nobody adopts a speed limit. So if the town wants some more income, police presence with traffic tickets would be fantastic to,
30 seconds.
Start to, come up with, what's the word I'm looking for? Not make it as inviting for other people to just kind of barrel through town. We all know as locals what the back roads are, and they're already difficult enough, and I do agree that, this road would just facilitate other options for people to try to get further east quicker. So thanks for your time, and I really appreciate everything you guys are trying to do. And
Thank you. All right, so Vera, you are next, followed by Lorraine Florentine. She already speak? She already spoke. No, it's okay. You can let your husband speak now. All right, how about Marianne Albano?
Everybody has said, all against, I'm against, and everybody has said everything.
You're Marianne?
I am.
All right, then how about Barbara Stukinski? All right, how about, this is for on deck, because Vera's next. Tom Barnes, is Tom Barnes here? Burns? All right. All right.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start with a question. Does this board ever meet in Hampton Bays anymore? I mean, this is an important question issue for Hampton Bays. And my feeling is that we haven't had a meeting on it for more of the residents to come and voice their opinion.
So this is not a question and answer session. I'll take the moment to say that we have at times met, typically this is town hall.
Right.
But we have held some work sessions and even some public hearings in Hampton Bays. I think because of the pandemic, we just sort of started meeting in person again. Obviously, a meeting like this, I would prefer to have in Hampton Bays to make it as accessible as possible. But we're just sort of getting to that point where we can start talking about having meetings again, you know, at the senior
Right,
center.
that's true. We're finally back. But I do think it would be a good idea to bring the rest of the community in by having a meeting in Hampton Bays. And I also want to say that I am not for the bypass for reasons that have been stated. I'm not a traffic expert like most of us aren't, but somehow I feel that the solution has to be north of Hampton Bays. And whether it's a Sunrise Highway or alternate roads, but as one of the previous speakers says, Main Street is Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. And there's a lot of congestion, and that's prior to any future building that could possibly go on in our community. I'm against the loss of trees and the greenery. I'm still mourning the loss of our diner. And, I think there was a lost opportunity because at one point there was someone who was interested in purchasing that diner. And I think more than a hotel or any other purpose for that area, I think the residents of Hampton Bays would really appreciate having a nice eatery, a diner, a place to go for breakfast and lunch. And so at any rate, I understand that you're trying to solve this problem. We do have a big traffic problem, but I don't think that this little bypass is really going to solve our problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so give me 1 second here. So Tom, before you speak, next up is Mary Pizan.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Schneiderman and members of the town board. This is my first time ever doing this. My wife and I live on Lincliffe Road in Hampton Bays, and I hope it never becomes the Lincliffe Road bypass. It's one thing that comes to my mind of the commercial traffic in Hampton Bays. Obviously, trucks need to make deliveries and do work, as opposed to passing through on their way to someplace else. I wonder if there could be any kind of a distinction, allowable, not allowable, permit, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder about that. I agree with everybody that's spoken before me, except for the first gentleman who was in favor of this. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Out of order. I'm Barbara Stuczynski, number 18.
I called your name before, so yes, go ahead.
Gimpy. I apologize.
No, that's okay. And before you speak, too, because I called Mary next, and I apologize, but actually, Gail Lombardi, you're in order before Mary, so unless you want, if you don't mind switching places, it's either way. Okay, then, all right, then we'll go
I'm
with...
fast. I'm 1, 2, 3.
Mary, we'll go with you.
I applaud everyone who has opposed. I agree with them. My concern is pollution. Instead of 1 lane of pollution, you're giving us 2. Thank you.
All All right, so I guess Mary will take you next, and followed by Gail.
Okay, hi, good to see you all again.
And that was, for the clerk's record, that was Barbara Stakinski who just spoke. Okay. Sorry about
Mary Pazan, P-A-Z-A-N, from Hampton Bays. I wrote a letter dated June 17th. I submitted written comments about the alienation, which I assume you've received. So this is a bit of an addenda or supplement to my June 17th letter. I agree with everything that everybody says. I also oppose the bypass for many reasons, including those that have been articulated, plus what's in my letter. But what I want to focus on a little bit is the swapping of parkland for parkland. Happens to be, I drank a Kool-Aid when I worked for the Parks Department, so I protect it to the death. So at some point, the Community Preservation Fund and the town board determined that the property on Montauk Highway qualified as property that should be preserved as open space and therefore purchased with community preservation funds. This plan proposes to undermine that determination. The board has articulated it needs the property for the Good Ground extension while simultaneously claiming the Good Ground extension may or may not happen. So I kind of said, why would you waste all your time on this? Then I went to visit the substitute parkland. So the substitute property on South Valley Road is on a private road surrounded by a few private properties, and according to the for sale ad on Zillow, is accessible only through other private property. So the benefit to the substitute property accrues therefore only to the select few living on the property on the private road. Not only will these property owners have their backyards increased, but they will be protected from residential development on all sides. Meanwhile, the residents on the western side of the canal are left to struggle with the town-instigated increases in density and more luxury condominiums. There's no public benefit to the acquisition of the South Valley Road property. Everyone complains about lack of affordable housing. Well, 13 acres of property could be used for affordable or senior housing on the other side of the canal. So I object to the use of public funds being used to benefit one or two residents to the detriment of the rest of the community. The town's continuous efforts to stuff as much as it can on the western side of the canal and preserve the eastern side of the canal is unacceptable and starting to appear as a pattern of economic and environmental discrimination. Should the Good Ground extension not proceed, the town will be free to offer the Montauk property to residential and or commercial development. Parkland is protected by the public trust doctrine. Where are we when the public cannot trust its elected representatives to protect valuable open space? So, should, if I may call it a folly, proceed, I would like to propose that the town choose a more appropriate and acceptable substitute property. As an example, my favorite property, the Bel Air Motel property, is currently owned by the town. There's been no movement to eliminate what you referred to as a blighted building, and the town has conceded in the course of our lawsuit that it does not know what it's going to do with the property. So the blighted building continues to deteriorate over at least 2 years. The site is an eyesore to residents and visitors, and contrary to other public statements made by the board, the public record for the Bel Air indicates most people objected to the use of the site for condos or a hotel and preferred open space. The town should explain the reason for choosing an inaccessible substitute site when it could choose a site that would be usable and accessible by the public and would therefore increase, not diminish, the community's use of its waterfront property. The purpose of a public hearing is for the municipality to listen to public comment and to consider those public comments in its decision-making process. It is expected that in deciding whether to proceed with this alienation, the town board will consider and document its response to all of the public comments received today or sent in letters or emails or texts.
30 seconds.
It's also expected that the town's official record will accurately reflect the process. I was a bit stunned, to be honest, at the quality and consistency of the town's records involving the Bel Air. And without impugning anyone's character and recognizing that unintentional mistakes can happen, the record was, at best, confusing and inconsistent for many reasons. I have attached here the photo of the 20, what do you want to say, Sun Valley, South Valley Road, private road, and also the Zillow ad, which states that the property could be subdivided. So I would propose that you use that 13 acres for what you yourselves say is much sorely needed affordable housing, and leave the parkland as it is so that we can rely on our elected officials to keep their promise to uphold the public trust doctrine.
All right, you're batting cleanup, Gail. Gail Lombardi.
I'm last?
You're last.
Wow, okay. So Mary's always a hard act to follow, for those that don't know Mary. So I agree with everything that everyone else said so far, except for Greg Smalls, who I will refrain from making any further comment. Let's recap. This is not about the current traffic, and we all know how bad this is. The town attorney was very specific. This is about the additional development, which Greg Smalls may or may not be part of, that was approved on February 25th, 2020. While people were dying in hospitals, our town board approved an overriding dense development overlay district. And if you look back in 2016 with Supervisor Snyderman, right, Jay, that you talked about a developer purchasing all the underdeveloped property around the park. This was, again, resurrected, as Marion Bowden said, even though it was defeated in the corridor study, was resurrected to allow traffic, more traffic, 147 housing units and hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial space for this to go through. You provided a secret statement. You have to now check the box that you went through this. Otherwise, well, maybe the project can't go through. And maybe the sewage treatment plant, that's 30 Cemetery Road, and that's my open, I'll speak to that later. So we have a situation here that this is not for old traffic. This is for new traffic. 147 units of housing and hundreds of $100,000, 100,000 square feet. Well, 248 is the total, 147 without an additional secret. If that was a site plan, this would get much more detailed review. You all moved forward with an overlay district, some generic, loosey-goosey plan. And my boyfriend asked me not to wave my hands because he sees the video. This was actually, there was a post on one of the social medias called this plan an assault on Hampton Bays, this road. It's literally an assault on the rest of Hampton Bays for the development of one developer and a handful of other property owners, which, no offense, Mr. Martell, you're one of them, and you should be really recusing yourself, in my humble opinion.
I have.
From all these votes.
I have,
This vote too.
most likely.
Okay. So it's a handful of people it's going to benefit because it's checking the box. It's not really going to help, but it will allow them to move forward on the plan. Suffolk County, as opposed to what Greg Small said, that this will maintain the character. Suffolk County's plan, and I'm legally blind, so I'm writing in big pen here. Suffolk County's planning board staff said that the density and the community character for the HBDOD is akin to Ronkonkoma and what was the other town? Excuse me while I find the other town. Ronkonkoma and Wyandanch. Because I know everybody in the Hampton Bays wants to be Wyandanch and Ronkonkoma. Everybody just dreams of being Wyandanch and Ronkonkoma. We were promised Southampton Village, West Hampton Village, Sag Harbor, not Wyandanch and Ronkonkoma. So this now increases the density, will allow for the increase in the density for the residential and commercial. It's not about the old traffic. It's not about, a valve for anything. It's for this project. And so town board knows, and I'll say in public, I filed an Article 78 petition against this project, and hopefully we'll hear back soon. And I also submitted a letter about very specific items regarding this bypass, because this was done by a planner who doesn't live in Hampton Bays,
who was paid very generously by the town board to come up with something that will support this development. So while we may not be planners, we live and walk these areas every day, and we know what it's like now, notwithstanding another 147 apartments and hundreds of thousands of commercial feet. So if, Sunday Shimon, if you don't have a copy of my correspondence from the last public hearing that I didn't come to, but I have another copy.
Well, if you've already submitted and it's the same, then it's not necessary to submit it again.
Okay.
But if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, so it's a copy of what I already submitted.
All right, so that's the last. That's the last card that was filled out that I have. Is there anyone who didn't fill out a card who still wishes to be heard? This is not a second round for those who've already spoken. But if you have not spoken and you didn't fill out a, sorry, Lorraine, is there anyone else who wanted to be heard and didn't fill out a card? Okay. All right, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We don't have a resolution on, do we, on this? Is it one in the packet?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
You have the secret resolution.
The secret resolution.
As well as the adoption.
Okay.
Because it refers to the overlay district.
Okay. All right, so, and that was the last public hearing. We are going to move on to public portion. Those of you who want to leave, can the board take one moment to let some people leave quietly? All right. We're running out of time on it, so I support it. So I know it's explain why, but.
Hey, call me about that wall. Okay, don't worry about it.
Okay, all right, because I have to get to motor vehicle. They've done a major screw up on my cars.
All right, please, if you're exiting, please do so quickly. You're doing right.
There was a resolution specifically.
Well, there's public portion coming up. You can speak now, yes.
I know, he's in here.
Because that was for that public hearing, and that would have been.
Anton, you're the third speaker on the list.
I just want to be clear, you got it.
Yes.
I got it, it's here. First of all, let's put it on the ballot.
You just feel better. I think you have. Well, for this year, we'll be forward.
Where'd everybody go?
Take a break or take a little
The complex, like, there is a time, not only put on the ballot, but also the diner's gonna then come in and redevelop the property as well. And then this opportunity will be lost forever. And you'll never be able to get this road built. Yeah, I mean, you can't bring it anywhere else without, I mean, look at the map. Even if you brought it up to one rectangle, you couldn't make a left there to get back to the
Oh, yeah. Same situation now that the
They'll break it up.
That would make the interim work. Yeah, it sounds like if more housing happens, lights, flames, maybe some restrictions.
My lunch is calling me.
Like this.
Somebody's going to.
There's some things.
But it
I'm sure I make time.
brought up a bunch of those issues, Fanning Avenue.
I got it. Especially this one.
Here?
He was?
He didn't see it. He voted and couldn't make restriction on elections. Man, so I even asked him to make.
But that's just like push it down to different.
Right, then it has to go.
Yeah,
back.
me too.
That's spot we said, way back.
Yes, yes.
Right over there.
Right.
Sometimes I'll come around and turn almost like boat and stuff.
I think so.
Past the road there.
Yeah.
You use it in the back.
That's all that
Or
makes
even
sense.
this new road could be like.
No, I went there to look at the site.
I thought
Say,
you
wasn't it? But then if you get a
That's
home
me to look at the site after. There's nothing traffic.
It's the first I've heard of
To me, this was always supposed to be access for.
that I can
I've seen
remember.
it to get to the beach, not for, the problem is traffic was the height of everything.
If you didn't have the.
Yeah. It's right there. That's-
Yeah.
I always
Right.
look because I can see my boat from that. Like, is he out? Is he in?
How do we get, the traffic really belongs on Sunrise in County Road 30.
I'm working together.
Blink the lights on County Road 30.
So you know that I asked around that numerous times?
Yes.
Okay.
Amazing.
Okay, so we're back, and we're going to go to public portion now. During public portion, you can speak about any issue you wish, things that are in front of us on today's agenda or other topics that you want to bring to our attention. So, again, each speaker has 3 minutes to make their comments known, and we begin with Stephen Padilla. Stephen Padilla. Going once, twice, 3 times. All right. I have Marion Bowden.
Oh, next?
You're next. This is a different topic, right?
Yes, it's a different topic.
Take your time.
And I'm getting my first pair of hearing aids on Friday, so you're lucky I heard you because I
Can you repeat that, Marion?
redundant, I may be misunderstanding what's being said. And I hate to admit I need hearing aids, but I need hearing aids, what can I tell you? I'm here because right on the same front page that really got me going about the bypass was about a sewer district. And since I waited so long on the bypass, I thought I'd come and speak right up about the sewer district. Years ago, when I was president of Civic, I was, always on the density issue. That was always my big thing, since we were the most dense hamlet place in the town. And someone, and I hate to tell you, I think I know who it was, a very important person who, like we would all know and respect, not a town employee, but I swear I can't, I don't want to say his name out loud for fear I'm wrong. But it was someone I really, really respected. He whispered in my ear right in this room as we were going out, he said, if you're really concerned about density in Hampton Bays, don't ever let them put in a sewer district. So I always had that back here. So when I read sewer district, I went, oh, God. Anyway, we all know this, it allows density and population to increase so dramatically versus other systems, and there are other systems which I understand are pretty darn good. Maybe not as fabulous as a sewer district, but then again, we're not Patchogue, or Long Island City, so, we may not need that overkill. They're not as dramatic, but they would be appropriate. The other thing is, sewer districts tend to be a public expense, and these other things we could build in as a private expense with the developers and, cost us a lot less. Anyway, but look up Ireland. I was in Patchogue not too long ago. We won't be Patchogue, but we could be a mini Patchogue. I was appalled. Now, in some places, the downtown was so despicable to begin with that, a nuclear power plant maybe would have been an improvement, But Hampton Bays isn't like that. It really isn't. We may not be the most beautiful hamlet in the town, but we're a pleasant hamlet in the town. We're authentic, we're real, we are who we are. And to change that, I think would break most of our hearts. We like our hometown. A few hundred less nail salons, maybe, things like that. But anyway, if it's approved by what was proposed under the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District, the area would include all the land north of Good Ground. You know this, but they may not. The land north of Good Ground Road, south of Good Ground Park, east of Springville Road and Cemetery Road, and west of the town center and St. Rosalie's Church. So one basically long block in the heart of downtown. This would allow 348 multifamily apartments. The population in the area would be expected to go from 119 people to approximately 556, an almost 5 times increase. And in much of that area, the buildings would be allowed to be 3.5 stories high. And you, again, you all know this, but talk about changing the face of a community. And I realize we maybe wouldn't get 556, but if the demand for apartments is as great as we all kind of think they are. And once again, it's like the town has a big problem, like with affordable housing. Hampton Bays real estate is a little bit cheaper, so everybody wants to come into Hampton Bays builders because it's cheaper. And then instead of putting in 10 here, 5 here, whatever, they put in as much as they can cram into a small space. And it's unacceptable. I think it's really unacceptable, and people have reached that. They know it. They think it's nuts. I think it's nuts that it would change the whole character of our downtown. We wouldn't recognize it if we went away or went in, like the soap operas have you go into amnesia for 20 years, you know, and we came back, like we probably wouldn't even recognize downtown Hampton Bays. Hampton Bays, as I said, it's authentic. It's not a bunch of cookie-cutter buildings with a few added doodads to make each building look a little bit differently. Sure, we would appreciate some upgrades. I would be thrilled to see when we were buying Good Ground Park, the idea was to build park-friendly things across the street, kite stores, an ice cream parlor, outdoor cafes. Now, you know, when I read about what's proposed, it's really overkill. So I think we all would appreciate some upgrades because every town could always use a little bit of whatever. A complete overhaul, it wouldn't be us anymore. And I beg you, before you go much further with this, to please reconsider having a sewer district. I really do. And having that kind of density in a hamlet that I don't think could take it. It would just change it so much you wouldn't recognize it. So I thank the Southampton Press for alerting us, and I beg you, before you get too much into it and spend a lot of time and money on it, that you really consider, do we need this? I don't think we do. So, anyway, thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Marion. All right, Anton Borovino, you are next, followed by Gail Lombardi, and then Mary Pizet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Anton Borovina, attorney, and I represent some neighbors on Seasons Lane who are interested in the board's consideration of the affordable housing project along CR 39 in Old Baptist Church. And I'm speaking specifically with respect to the board's consideration today of a SEQA resolution under 2020 of 730 to pause deck the application. And I just, part of the consideration, and this is the a question whether or not the scope the applicant has considered and whether or not it will be included within the scope. There is a prohibition, as I understand, against excluding non-residents from affordable housing projects that are funded by the federal government. And if and to what extent that prohibition may impact the expectation, I think, of local residents to believe that local residents or their children will be allowed to or given the opportunity, a meaningful opportunity to reside in the units, assuming the board approves it, is going to be considered. Is that part of the scoping project or not? And that's something which I really don't know what the answer is. Well, I guess, so I'd like the board to consider that as whether or not it's included within the scoping resolution. I do note that there is scoping resolutions will be considered by the board. I just want to, if I have any idea as to when that might happen so that I don't miss that opportunity. And then that dovetails into, I note that the fourth resolve clause says that all interested agencies, as identified by the board's resolution, will be given copies of essentially of everything. Well, my people at Season Lane are not interested agencies, and the question is, would we also have the same opportunity to avail ourselves at that site to determine what papers and documents are being given either for or against the application, or as part of the environmental review process?
I'm not prepared to answer that question, so Jim, I don't know if you want to field it, but the first question dealing with the scope, we haven't done the scoping yet, so I don't know what the scoping is going to involve. In terms of the timing of the scoping, I expect it to be expeditious, so within a short period of time. In terms of who are the agencies that are, involved agencies, and how your clients become notified and how you follow that process, I'll leave that one to Jim.
Yeah, I mean, typically you have local municipalities, the villages, adjoining neighbors. If you have an address, Antoine, I can take, if you want to be the point person we may be able to include you in the notices.
Frank, I just want to make sure that's my understanding, and that's certainly acceptable. I'll forward that over to your office at the appropriate time. And that's it, Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah,
That's,
the primary decision in front of the board today is whether to pause deck.
That's it. That's the only thing, as I understand it, the only thing before the board today. That's
Once we pause that, then we'll go into scope.
Well, and again, but whether or not the scope of the scoping includes the prohibition against residency is something that I just it's important to consider.
Prohibition to the preference for residencies?
Well, the prohibition against excluding non-residents as qualifying for affordable.
I mean, the typical scope, Anton, under secret, you're really looking at the traffic, the environmental.
That's correct. Oh, yep.
The original place where somebody lived prior to living there probably would not factor in, unless there's some environmental connection to that.
Oh, I don't think it would either. I agree with that, but.
I want to be clear.
No, that I agree with, but nevertheless, if the project is for the purpose of affordable housing to benefit the community, and whether or not the community, it seems to me, has an interest in knowing if and to what extent its local residents and those who are proximate to the South Fork of Long Island would be benefited by
Factor into an ultimate decision to, approve or not approve. But in terms of the scope of the secret, this is the pause deck is going to be narrow to the environmental traffic.
to the classic consideration.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, that's.
Just, finalizing and eventually adopting an EIS doesn't necessarily mean that the project will be approved or not.
Oh, and that's also true, too. And but at what point, I just want to make sure it's considered from the inception, if and to the extent it's going to be part of the EIS process, that it be, or otherwise, by the way, the EIS process proceeds, Mr. Supervisor, just as you had indicated, considering traffic, water quality, et cetera. And then when that secret process is now resolved, then the town board considers other factors going into whether or not it's going to approve or disapprove the application. That's it. That's all I wanted to be clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
All right.
Counselor, there's some pretty well-established case law on that, right?
On the preference issue you're talking about? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we can't, obviously, we cannot exclude.
I mean, we're not going to discuss it here now, no. It's-
Participating in the lottery,
Thank you.
whatever, how they're going to distribute the affordable housing. Yes.
Okay, Gail Lombardi and then Mary Pizan.
And also, getting Gail Lombardi, and Marion, I think, left, but I'm referring to the same article that Marion's referring to in the Southampton Press. It gave the impression to the community that this is like a nebulous site and nebulous process, which really, I'm not sure how that could be when it's pretty clear that the site that was in the SECRA EIS of May 2019 was 30 Cemetery Road, a very specific site, owned, ironically, in 2015, purchased by a developer called 30 STP LLC, sewage treatment plant. The man must be psychic that in 2015 he bought a piece of property and knew it was going to try to be developed as a sewage treatment plant. Or is that the same developer, Supervisor, that you referred to in that article in 2016? In July 2019, before the HBDOD was approved, you all filed for a grant for the same site. You applied for the grant for that site under the HBDOD before the HBDOD was even approved, before it even went to public hearing, and you indicated that this site would somehow have a connection to the Shaconic Bay and Inlet.
I'm sorry, Gail? connection to the
grant says it has some help to the why can't I say it now? Shinnecock Bay and Inlet. I'm very nervous. It's been over a year. Shinnecock, thank you. Shinnecock Bay and Inlet. You also issued and signed an agreement in December 2020 for the plan to be for 30 Cemetery Road. So you have a plan, you signed an agreement, you have now a completed plan, which I foiled and got rejected, but I've asked the town attorney, there's no reason they can't provide me the plan, it's finished. You've already received approval. So Marion thinks, oh, this is kind of nebulous, but it's 2 years of process that you're looking to develop a sewage treatment plant on a piece of property that the person owned that, you know, it must have been psychic. So I say, why are you trying to hide this? Other than the fact that, going back to this article in 2016, this developer's been working on this with the town board, with the planning, tax dollars spent, our tax dollars, our resources, our planning boards, for a site plan that's been in effect for 4 years. And it is shocking that our town board is expending tax dollars for somebody that should be doing a site plan on their own and should have came to the community open. The other thing is that it's in the middle of a cemetery, literally. And you guys have demonstrated at February 25th meeting, you had the Shinnecock Nation begging you not to build on their remains. But yet here, the sanctity of human remains, it's like, let's just put a sewage treatment plant in the middle of it. It's literally adjacent. Now, some of us actually respect human remains and respect, you know, the quality of life after death. You're supposed to go visit your relatives. So it's really shocking, the information that got put out. You approved the HBDOD in the middle of a pandemic. You've moved forward very actively on that road, on the sewage treatment plant, in the middle of a pandemic. It's almost like you want to hide it. You're not shouting it from the rooftops. Either the editor or the reporter at the press got it wrong, or you didn't give her the complete information. It's very clear, 30 Cemetery Road. That's it. That's the address. It should be in the paper. Everybody should know where it is. Everybody should go visit it. They should see it from Good Ground Park. They should see it from when they go visiting their relatives in the cemetery, a historic cemetery. So in the future, it would be really helpful if you provide complete, accurate information that Marion doesn't know after being the head of the Civic what's going on. She should, but you guys have never, on this project, provided accurate and complete information to the public from day one. And I'm waiting for my FOIL requests for that plan and the approvals.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Mary Suzanne.
Well, hello again. I figured since I was here about the alienation of parkland, and I do feel very strongly that that 13 acres is not really an appropriate piece of parkland, and I don't really think that if thoroughly looked at, it would meet the requirements for a land swap under the state law. So since I'm here, though, and you all know that my petition, my Article 78 petition for the Bel Air was dismissed in a nutshell based on the court. The court basically said that the plan for condos or a boutique hotel was simply an aspirational goal, and the Suffolk County Department of Health Services was pretty clear on grandfathering and waivers, and your outside counsel represented, I think we must have had 26 conference calls with the judge, which only ended because he retired. Otherwise, we'd probably still be having conference calls. But during that time, your outside counsel represented numerous times that, in fact, the town really had not made a final determination on the Bel Air property. So since, you know, it's been 2 years since you declared the building blight under the state law, the building just continues to deteriorate. It's looking pretty ugly. We all have to pass it when we go to the beach or anywhere else. And so since I've been led to believe by the court proceedings that you really don't have a determination on what to do, I'm wondering if you could perhaps enlighten us as to what is going on right now with the Bel Air?
I'll speak a little, but I'm not going to say too much here.
Wise. No.
So Our head of land management, Janice Shearers, had a leave of absence. She's coming back very soon. And one of the things I think that is topmost on the agenda is to start soliciting proposals for the Bel Air. Now, the urban renewal plan called for two possible uses. One was as a 22-unit
Right.
motel, one, you're very familiar, I know, and the other was as a 12-unit condominium. A third possibility would be what it is under the current zoning and CO, which is the building as it is, as of right type of use, which is, I think the county recognizes like 17-unit motel or something like that. There's been some interest in fixing it up and returning it to a hotel as is. There's also been interest in turning it into a 22-unit motel or a 12-unit townhouse. Both of those, I believe you would have to do a sewage treatment facility because of the county's, sanitary flow requirements. The as-of-right hotel is already there, so just a simple sanitary upgrade to some sort of IA system without increasing any density or use is a possibility too. So we would be basically hearing some of those proposals that we could then vet with the community and see what direction the community thought is the best direction of those three, and take it from there.
Right. So the waterfront revitalization plan, which you vigorously defended, I'm not going to say vigorously, but in that plan specifically, yes, it calls for the condos or the hotel. It also calls for the raising of the structure. So is the structure going to be raised?
When you say raise, you're talking about
Demolish.
lifting or tearing down?
Demolish.
This is
Yeah.
two meetings spelled differently.
R-A-Z-E.
R-A-Z-E.
Yes. Your plan calls for the R-A-Z-I-N-G
So if-
of the structure, and I'm just curious as to why that, I can guess why, because you're trying to grandfather something in that I understand from the county you can't do, because I've reached out to them. So I guess I'm, prompted also by an article in the Southampton Press where, about the blighted property in East Quogue, the last paragraph said that, quoted you as saying you weren't aware that that building still existed. So the Bel Air still exists. It's still falling apart. Your plan that you want to follow calls for the demolition and removal of that structure. So is there any movement to demolish and remove the existing structure?
Let me answer your question about the raising of the building. So if it's developed according to the urban renewal plan, yes, it would be demolished, and it would, whether it's the 12-unit condo, townhouse type of development, or a 22-unit motel, it would be a new development, likely further from the water, elevated up on sewage treatment. If it's developed without the urban renewal plan, which basically is no development other than the cleaning up of what's there and a brand-new sanitary system that removes nitrogen, that would not be lifting the building up. Now, could it be lifted up? I suppose it could be, but right now, that would be basically if somebody else had come in and just purchased it and used it according to the grandfather rights, the CO,
Right.
rather than as an apartment building, but used it as a motel. I think the county recognizes less units than perhaps if you look at the building, it's numbered for, I think, 22 units. I think the county recognizes less than that. So it would have to comply with the counties.
So I don't have the benefit of my wastewater engineer with me today, but, and again, not to debate this, but my understanding is that the way that the regulations are drafted as they exist as of last July 1st, 2019, maybe? I'm getting my years mixed up. That you could not increase the discharge rate beyond what is already there, even if you did put in a sewage treatment plant. So, but we could debate that. Reasonable legal minds can differ. And then when would the town be putting out, wants to, an RFP or something for the environmental impact statement that has to be done?
So the next step would be some sort of request for proposals or expressions of interest to see from the private sector who is interested in, and in what way, of those three, the as of right or the urban renewal plan. And so that we can start to look at those, they could develop some renderings, and we can have some community conversation. Until you pick which one, and then.
I get it, you need a site plan before you do
Yeah,
the
then you
EIS.
do
I
that.
understand that.
Right, exactly, what would you be doing the EIS?
So is the EAF that you're going to vote on today, is that today for the Good Ground Extension, is that a final document, or is there another EIS that you're going to do? I mean, I guess basically what I'm saying is, look, is this EAF final? If one wanted, and I'm not saying that one would, but if one wanted to challenge the negative deck, should you adopt that resolution today? Can one do that, or is the town planning on doing another environmental impact statement so that they don't actually have to deal with the challenge, the legal challenge? Or are you done?
Jim, I'll leave that to you.
I'm not sure if I even understand the question, but I'm not.
Is the EAF a final determination that would trigger a statute of limitations right now?
You took.
You talking on the parkland alienation bill?
Yes. You have a resolution on today to adopt a negative deck. So is that a final determination that starts the statute of limitations?
You have to take that under you have to figure it out. I'm not.
Well, then let me
Can't
rephrase
give
it.
Private legal advice.
I'm not asking you for legal advice. I'm asking whether you made a final determination or not. That's a yes or a no, because, as you know, if you haven't made a final determination, then one really would not have a case. And I'm not saying I want to bring a case. I just want to understand how the town is operating here with the adopting of negative deck. For the Bel Air, the negative deck was okay because your aspirational goal, you only had an aspirational goal, and you said you're going to do an EIS. So for the Good Ground Extension, is the EIF a final document, or is there perhaps another EIS that has to be done? Or is this it? That's all I'm asking. Is this it for the environmental review?
For the actual land swap.
For this actual one.
Okay.
All right, the document speaks for itself, essentially.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
So,
You're kind of mixing the two. I mean, it was the
I
facts.
am mixing the
The
two.
facts of the Bel Air case was one thing. It was a completely different set of facts than what we have in front of us today. So, you know.
well, I am
Secret rules
conflating
are
them, as
applied
Bill
on a
might say.
case-by-case basis here, and you can't really.
But they are similar in the fact that we have an EAF, an environmental assessment, that, a negative declaration. And when that declaration was challenged for the Bel Air, part of the defense was, well, we don't know what we're going to do, and we're going to
gonna
do,
relitigate
we're going to
the
do,
Bel Air
an-
case.
I know, but no, but wait a minute, we're going to do another EIS.
Successfully defended.
So I'm asking, again, whether this is a final determination. There's not going to be another environmental review on the land swap. That was it.
On the land swap? No.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the last card I have. Is there anyone else? Yeah, yes, it's public portion, so I have not closed public portion yet.
Just quickly, because it's something personal to me, all this discussion about development around the cemetery, I haven't got much hope that we can stop it. When you develop around the cemetery, I assume that you're going to fence and screen. My whole family's buried up there. I really don't want it to be in the middle of a sewer plant and a highway.
All right, thank you.
It'll be 10 feet from the road.
I didn't put in a card.
You can speak in public portion. Just, I'll recognize you. Sure, come on up.
I just have some follow-up questions. I'm learning a lot, and I empathize with all parties.
So my first question is, during the course of the meeting about the land swap,
Right, that record is closed now. You can speak on other topics.
Oh, not any topics discussed already prior to.
Well, the
Sorry.
record is...
Won't be in the hearing record.
The record
hearing
is
records.
closed on...
Oh, I just wanted to know, like, what happens next steps? I'm educating myself. So do you guys make, like, in other words, kind of a question that I think Mary just asked, which is, do you guys now vote to do the land swap or not? Like, what's the happens next in the order
Sorry,
of events?
I'm sorry, could you identify yourself
Oh, I'm
again
so
for the
sorry.
record, just
I'm
for-
so new
for
to
the
this.
minute?
Margaret
It's okay.
Friedlander.
It's
I live in
okay.
Hampton Bays.
Not a problem.
So, in trying to educate myself, and I don't want to take up your time, but I'm trying to understand. So you had the hearing.
There were two resolutions on the agenda today.
Mhm.
There's Resolution 708 on page 29, which
Right.
is the secret that was mentioned, and there's Resolution, sorry, that was 708, and then 709 is would authorize us putting it on the ballot.
Okay, so it goes.
If both of those are approved, then there'll be a vote in November, as long as the governor also signs the bill.
Right. He has.
Right.
I gotcha.
So, and then, should the public support it in November, then that piece, that long rectangle, won't be parkland anymore.
Right.
And the board then has options to do the swap with the diner, to enable the creation of this road, all those.
Right. And
Those
so,
are
yeah,
all for later dates.
I understand that. So right now, any options for the town to consider another area for a swap is not an opportunity. It goes on the ballot as is.
This swap was already approved by Albany.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, just, to provide maybe some additional information there, when originally we thought just a portion of that rectangle was parkland.
Right. I understood
A small portion, and the bulk of the back portion that wasn't going to be for the road, we were going to put into parkland,
Gotcha.
as well as another piece. And so it sort of was, within this plan, there was an equivalent amount of new parkland being created as not being created. But to satisfy all parties, we then, chose this other piece.
Right. So,
as well. So, but the
it's
plan-
this for this
the-
was approved, that's it, it'll go on the ballot. There's no other option right now.
No, but the board still plans to have a lot of green space all around that, and lands that might be municipally owned in that section to be used as parkland around the road. So there'll be more parkland created than is being eliminated, for certain.
Because it's funny that Mary brought it up, and I won't take the time. I've heard a lot. I also had questions about the Bel Air property, but I'll just leave it at that. Thanks for clarifying for me. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is anyone else for public portion? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close.
Second?
Second by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public portion is now closed, and we will move on to the agenda. Is there anything you want to do, take out of order? No, let's just go through it. All right, John, you're first.
You didn't want to do the...
Excuse me.
We've added them.
Yeah, those are all.
We brought all the in, right?
Yeah, we brought them in already.
Okay, Town Board Resolution 2021-681, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is to authorize a budget modification to the Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2020-682 is to authorize the purchase and installation of fencing from Suffolk County contract with Residential Fences Corporation. This is co-sponsored with Councilman Martell.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-683, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is to authorize the supervisor to sign a lease agreement on a town community benefit unit located at 187 Merchants Path, Sagaponack.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 684-21, authorize supervisor to sign an agreement with New York Power Authority for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations in Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 685 of 2021 authorizes supervisor to sign a DPP with Toshiba for copy machines from Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 686 of 2021, authorize the Parks Director to enter into interim agreements for mobile ice cream concessions for 2021 summer and fall seasons at Good Ground Park.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. 687 of 2021. Authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Contemporary Computer Services, Inc. for managed network services.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 688 of 2021, authorize the supervisor to execute a lease agreement with Bridgehampton Village Improvement Society, BVIS, for BB Windmill.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 689 of 21, authorize the supervisor to sign a 2021 agreement with KnowBe4 for the Information Technology Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 690, authorize the supervisor to sign a change order work authorization with Kintel Contracting for Bay Avenue bulkhead replacement.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. The 691 of 2021, authorize the supervisor to sign a community services grant agreement for the Shinnecock Indian Nation Housing Assistance Program.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. This is a $20,000 grant to address some of the substandard housing issues that we've heard about on the reservation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Okay, Town Board Resolution 692, we have to amend. The $5,000 amount should be $2,500, and where it reads 19,500 should read 17,000.
Okay, you want to read the,
So authorize the supervisor to sign contract amendment for Hampton Bays Beautification Association for the maintenance and upkeep of the Main Street Business District.
all right, so this is a motion to amend, right? So I'll second. All in favor? Aye. And now a motion to approve. Is there a second on?
Second?
Seconded. Cindy, do you have the changes?
I do, yes.
Okay,
Thank you,
so,
Cindy.
all right, so there's a second on the motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-693, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for demolition of 503 Noyak Road in North Sea.
Second.
Seconded by
Councilman Scavone.
Councilman Scavone. It's the CPF project. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 694 of 2021, award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract for Bay Avenue bulkhead replacement, East Quogue, New York, with South Shore Docks Incorporated.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-695, co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lofstad, to recall and amend 2021-257, declare items surplus and authorize disposal of vehicles.
Second?
All right, seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 696 of 21, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, recall and amend Resolution 2019-769 to include authorizing the supervisor to sign any and all documents in order to execute Environmental Facilities Corporation grant award for project 18667.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 697 of 2021, recall and amend Resolution 2021-639.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-698 is a 2021 notice to bidders notice to bidders RFP preparation for a climate action plan, CAP, for the town of Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 699 of 21, 2021 notice to bidders for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Facility.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 2021-700, 2021 notice to bidders for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance flashing beacon.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. 701 of 21 amends the 2021 budget for various departments.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 702 of 21 amends the 21 through 25 capital budget for beach improvements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 703 of 2021 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution 2021-597 for the Windsor Hart Project.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-704, appoint Amber Otto to the CAC West.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-705, reappoint Ann Algieri to the Conservation Board.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 706 of 21, authorize the town attorney to reimburse NYMER for the deductible for 2 claims settled in July of 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. 707 of 21, a resolution to authorize the settlement of a matter between Tarkan Bastayali, the town of Southampton, and Conscience Point Marina.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 708 of 2021, this is to adopt a negative declaration for the purposes of secret in connection with authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.28 acres of property to be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton.
Second.
So I am recusing myself from this vote. Anything related to the overlay district, I don't feel comfortable voting on. I just, even though I have cleared it with council and it's okay to vote, as long as I say I am in the boundaries, I choose not to at this point.
Okay, so I still need a second on the secret.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scavone.
On the motion?
On the motion, Councilman Lofstad.
So I just kind of want to talk about these three, there's actually three, because one is the Spanish language translation for the ballot. So we heard a lot of opposition today. We've also received a lot of emails and phone calls. I think one of the things that we as a town board should start thinking about is how to address the traffic issues. I know that we are looking to do a study on a traffic circle at the 24 Montauk Highway intersection, perhaps one on the other side of the canal. I think that many of these people with their side roads being used as speedways and overflow to Montauk Highway, maybe we can get some signing or some police enforcement or something to help all those side roads that are now becoming main roads because of apps like Waze. So that's something I would like to address. The other thing is many of the emails we received, people didn't know what was going on. This land swap is one piece in a bigger puzzle, and I think that the onus is on us as a town board, and I know I believe that everybody agrees, to get the information out to our community, and specifically the Hampton Bays community, because they're the one that it is affecting the most. So I have been back and forth with Janice Shearer, who is our Director of Planning, trying to get some good information. I hope that perhaps, as somebody suggested, we can take our show on the road to Hampton Bays like we've done in the past, maybe have a public information session, and try to address some of the very specific questions. And somebody had said, are you going to address every single question? I took notes through the whole thing, and a lot of the questions are similar, but I think that we should answer as many questions as we can, and then when the vote comes in November, if people still don't want to vote for it, then that's why we vote. People can vote for it or not vote for it. I'm also just confirming that after that vote, we can see by ED who voted for what, like we can do in regular elections.
Councilwoman Lofton, that's a question better left for the Board of Elections. Okay. I don't know if the clerk happens to know. I believe election districts do break down statistics,
I'm
but
sorry,
I can't answer.
This is the one that we were talking about excluding.
The Councilwoman would like to know if the
Would the
proposition.
board be able to get the data to see how, let's say, the Hampton Bays voters voted on the ballot proposition versus the rest of the town?
That's a BOE question.
To make-
That's beyond my
Yeah,
understanding.
I can answer
how
that
they
and say
function.
absolutely. You can absolutely get that data. You'll know exactly in each election district how that election district voted on the proposition.
Okay, so and that gives the town board some insight into, I heard somebody say, well, of course, everybody in Watermill is going to vote for it. Whether they do or don't, at least we'll have a way to figure out, did Hampton Bays support this or not after getting all the information that we should get to them. So that's what I would like to do, along with the rest of the board, get as much information, get it to the people, and have them make their own decision based on factual information. And again,
just on that one issue, so let's say it does pass in November. That information will not change that rectangle that you see is no longer parkland. That will officially not be parkland.
Yes.
It may affect the board's decision to do the diner swap. It may affect the board's decision to construct the road. But it will not, that will now be a municipal piece of property.
Understood.
Unrestrained by the parkland protection.
Understood, and it's going to be a nice landscaped gateway. We've seen some of the plans. It will be, right now we have a little sign to the east of the diner. Now that little area, the nice gateway will be to the right, I get the west side, right, yeah, for your heading south.
West side, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a strong proponent of having people vote on it, so I'm going to support these resolutions today, with the caveat that we need to go out and tell people some facts and all the facts and let them make the decision at the end for themselves.
Thank you, Julie. I want to say a couple things, too, since it sounds like we're talking about the broader issue. And certainly, look, I get the traffic nightmare, and I know how terrible it is on these back roads in Hampton Bays, and people are looking for relief. And, certainly, people are bypassing. They're bypassing the congestion on Sunrise and 27, on County Road 39, and this is affecting so many neighborhoods, not just these neighborhoods, but this is particularly bad. And there are great ideas out there, whether it's blinking some of the traffic lights or restricting commercial traffic on some of the back roads or creating more affordable housing east of the canal so that maybe people don't have to commute so far to get to their jobs, in East Hampton and, eastern portions of Southampton. But I will say, we're here for a blip in time, right? There's been lots of boards before us. There'll be lots of boards that come after us. And, the community has been asking for revitalization downtown, and the planning department, the planners in general, have been trying to figure out solutions. And this is one that's been on the books for a long time to sort of create this road. When those other properties were developed, there were easements that were asked for, 50-foot wide easements to create a future road in this area. The reason why it's sort of pressing at the moment is, you have this diner property, and, at some point that diner's going to come in for redevelopment, and you'll have a new building there. This opportunity to bring the road out at the intersection will be over. There'll be no more opportunities to do that. If the town board is successful in, doing this swap, and even if it, doesn't build the road now, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, some future board could build this road and get it out to the intersection. That opportunity may be lost. And we can't expect the diner folks to just wait forever, keep paying property taxes and say, okay, take another year to figure out what the town wants. So there is a bit of a time crunch associated with that. So, opportunity will be lost. I've evaluated whether you can get this type of road in anywhere else, and you just really can't. You just can't. Anywhere you bring it out that's not at the intersection creates so many problems. Like, let's say you brought it out where the parkland is, where that long rectangle is. How do you make a left there? right, as you come up to Montauk Highway. Atrium's already a problem. The only logical place is to end up at the main intersection. And if you're going to do a roundabout later on, that would help too. That's where you need this road to be at, not outside of the roundabout. So I think for a lot of reasons, this needs to move forward. And I think the ultimate decision whether to build the road, that may become apparent at a future date. But at least they'd have an opportunity to say, yeah, we can do it. Not like, why did the town board blow the opportunity? Now we can't ever do it. So that's kind of sort of how I look at it. But other people may want to comment on the broader issue as well. Do you guys, anybody else?
Sure, I would. After reading all of the letters that came into our office, and they were significant, and hearing the people tonight, it's very clear that traffic is a major issue in Hampton Bays. We know this and have for quite some time. The trade parade is just, it's massive. We have two roads that cross the Shinnecock Canal, so there's a geographic issue there as well as some other things. For me, I am a fan of rotaries. I think that roundabouts make traffic flow quite well. I believe, in my own view, that is something that could be employed in Hampton Bays over the next years, whatever that is, really quite well. And as far as the extension of Good Ground Road, for me, I believe that this is an option that perhaps a future board might want to exercise. I myself, after having lived in Hampton Bays, have seen Montauk Highway go from a 2-lane highway to what's now a 3-lane plus a turning lane in some spots highway, and I believe that is going to grow. A future board and community might want to have some options with that, because currently, well, Montauk Highway is a county road, and it will be up to the county to determine what that is. So for me, I will be supporting this resolution for future boards to have options, and I agree with Councilwoman Lopstead that we really need to look at with the traffic situation in Hampton Bays. That is an overarching theme in, I believe, most of our hamlets and communities is traffic. So those are my thoughts, and
John, did you want to say?
thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, and I agree with everyone, and actually I feel fortunate to have a board that has people who think this way. We're trying to think of the future. I think we've run into a bunch of things in the last 6 years that I've been on the board that I really wish previous boards had done something to think about the future. So I'm supporting this, not because it enables us to build a road tomorrow, but it enables a future board, or perhaps this board, to look at this problem as you've all articulated. So I'm basically repeating what you're all saying, but I'm in agreement with that. But I just want the public to know that I am voting right now to give the future that ability to do this. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a vote, not on putting it on the ballot, but on a negative declaration on this land swap. And of course, it's basically we're creating more parkland than we're losing, so I'm not surprised that the declaration is a negative declaration that's being recommended to us. Okay, I'll call the vote. We had a motion in a second, am I
Correct.
right?
We did, yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with one recusal. Councilman Martell is recused. All right, 709 of 2021, a local law authorizing the alienation and discontinuance of approximately 2.9 acres of Community Preservation Fund parkland in furtherance of the Good Ground Road extension in exchange for the encumbrance and dedication of approximately 13.28 acres of property be used as parkland within the hamlet of Hampton Bays, town of Southampton. Is there a second on this one?
Second?
Second, so this would place it on the ballot. And, I certainly heard, obviously, the audience was against this today overwhelmingly. It's not actually building the road, though. And it is also, it sounds like a lot of people might not even oppose the road if it was like local traffic only, if there's no commercial traffic on it. Or if maybe there was some other traffic mitigation to keep some of the trade parade out of their neighborhoods. So again, this only creates the option for a future board to make a decision here. And for that reason, I feel like the public has a right to vote on it, and then we'll have to make a decision based on how the public votes. If the public votes it down, and this is no longer an option anyway. If they vote in favor of it, you still don't have to create the road. So for that reason, I'm going to support this. So we had a motion, a second. Anyone else want to add anything? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are you
I'm
recusing?
voting no, I'm voting on this one because the people will decide in the end. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, so there's no recusal.
no?
No, it's 5 yes.
5
Oh,
yes.
5 yes, okay.
Yeah,
No recusal.
so allows it to go on the ballot. Okay, so that was unanimous. All right, we're going to move on to 7/10/2021. This is related as well. This is a resolution directing submission of ballot proposition and abstract together with Spanish translation to the Suffolk County Board of Elections. And
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. And Kathleen, this is, do we have the language yet, the Spanish language, or no, that's something that this resolution will develop?
It's being worked on as we speak, in
It's
the event
been
that this did get adopted. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk?
It has been ordered.
Yes,
They're
it's been
working on
ordered,
it, yes.
to spend it, in the event that this was adopted today.
Okay, while you're up there, let me ask you one related question. So I have not heard that the governor signed this. If the governor, for some reason, and typically he does support, these are sort of pro forma, and these alienation bills do get signed by the governor, but if for some reason it's not signed by the governor, we have to remove this from the ballot. So will we have to then rescind some of this, or how?
We would have to rescind it and contact the BOE. If in the event the BOE said that it was too late, then it just would be an exercise in, futility. It is a condition precedent that law up in Albany be signed by the governor.
Right.
So if that doesn't happen, then this project,
It could end up still being on the ballot, but the vote wouldn't count for anything.
Correct. I can't tell you how much lead time BOE needs to remove something from the ballot. That's the only reason why I can't
The
answer
ballot's a long way from being printed, so I think we have some time there. Okay. All right, and in terms of the actual Spanish language, that's something that's being developed.
Correct. We have, I'll allow them. clerk to
Yes,
answer.
we have people who translate our documents at request, but we need everything to be adopted so that we move forward on those.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, but it's ripe, though, in terms of we can vote on this, even though we don't have the finalized Spanish language.
You'll never see, you as a board will not actually see the Spanish translation. This is just authorizing this resolution and the abstract to be translated into Spanish and then transmitted with the English version over to BOE.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, we don't do this every day, so forgive me.
We've done it before, though.
We don't do a lot of ballot propositions.
Gracias, abogado.
All right, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right. So we're moving on, John.
Town Board Resolution 2021-711, authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Fire Department Parade on July 28th, 2021, from 6:30 PM to 9 PM.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. I wouldn't mind being added as a co-sponsor on this one.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, if we're going to do that.
You want to be on it?
Everybody,
Does anybody not want to be a co-sponsor on waiving?
All you need to do is ask.
the cost?
Oh, I'm sorry. Now are we adding everyone?
I think
I
so.
just need to hear.
Do we?
Yes.
Yes, the whole board is co-sponsoring.
Okay, well, then gear up, because we got a bunch more coming.
Yeah, and yes, likely on others too. So we had a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-712, authorization cost reimbursement waiver for Hampton Bays Fire Department Carnival from July 27th to August 1st, 2021.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. And does everybody want to also co-sponsor this?
Please.
Yes?
Yes, please.
All right, so the whole board as co-sponsors, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-713, cost reimbursement waiver for iTries Hampton Youth at Heart Triathlon on July 17th, 2021, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
No? Town Board Resolution 2021-714, I'm going to withdraw.
Okay, will the clerk consider it withdrawn?
Town Board Resolution 2021-715, release performance bond and accept maintenance bond in connection with the subdivision map of David's Path, Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 716 of 2021. This is the approval of the 2021 junkyard permits.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 717 of 2021. Approval of the 2021 manufactured homes community licenses.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 718 of 2021 part-time salaries.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 719 of 21 accepts resignation of a building permits examiner in land management.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 720 of 21 accepts resignation of a data entry operator in town clerk's office.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, and we're sorry to see Kelly go, but we
Yeah.
wish her well on her new career path. And all the best.
Yeah, I agree. Second that.
721 of 2021, adjust annual salary of senior management analyst.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 722 of 21 appoints Catherine Antos to Animal Control Officer 2 position in public safety.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who
Approved.
was the second?
Councilman Lofstad.
Thank you.
723 of 21 appoints Joanne Whelan Altenkirk to senior account clerk position in Justice Court.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 724 of 21 appoints Kara Back to Director of Housing in Housing and Community Services.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Just on the motion, she's got big shoes to fill with Diana Weir leaving that position, but we all have great confidence in Kara that she's going to do a wonderful job, and I know the town attorney's office is going to miss her.
Yes, I will.
Over there, but she's not too far away, and I know Kara.
But she'll be way too busy.
I know Kara's really excited about the post, and
Well deserved. She was
Yeah.
an excellent
And,
attorney in my office, and I really appreciate all her hard work there. She was willing to do anything that came at her, which was great.
And she's so enthusiastic to get on with
Oh,
this
no,
job,
she's going to be
too.
a terrific housing director, no
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
And I applaud her taking this new position, but we're also going to miss her terribly because she's assigned to many things that are in my office that are quite important, so
I know it's
we'll be knocking on
It's a
your
big
door
gain
for
in one.
conversation shortly.
Big gain for housing, big loss for the town attorney's office, but it's good for Kara and her journey here too, with the town that.
And the residents of the town, I think she's going to do a great
Yeah,
job.
I agree.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I
She'll
think
do a
it's
great job.
I think housing and creating affordable housing is something she really believes in
Yep.
and understands and wants to make a difference in. And, I look forward to working with her in that new capacity, though she has been very involved in those issues in the past as well.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-725, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is a notice of public hearing on the use of additional special supplemental community development block grant COVID funds to be awarded to the town of Southampton through the Suffolk County Consortium.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, approved. All right, 726 of 2021, notice of public hearing to consider amending the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan to consider the acquisition of lands of Bideawee, Inc., and amend the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include those properties. This is a hearing for August 10th at 1 p.m. here at Town
I'll
Hall.
second that if no one else is.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 727 of 2021, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone. It's a notice of public hearing to consider amending the Town of Southampton Community Preservation Project Plan to consider the acquisition of lands of the Lovelady Powell Revocable Trust and amend the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include that property. This also will be on Tuesday, August 10th. Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-728 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending various provisions of the Southampton Town Code, including chapters 330 zoning, 325 wetlands, and 123 building construction to remove notarization requirements on particular forms.
This is part of streamlining the building permitting process.
Yes, it is.
And the hearing again is August 10th.
Second.
So this is seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. John, you're up again.
Town Board Resolution 2021-729 is accept the grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Seatuck Cove Estates in Eastport.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. That was that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, 7:30. There's, give me a second here. I need to amend this one. All right, I'd like to, I think you've all been provided with a copy of the amended resolution. And basically, one of the resolve clauses is being removed, a new resolve clause, several new resolve clauses are being added to,
The relevant mailing and distribution information was not included in the original amendment as requested, so it's being added now.
so, right, so it's removing, resolve the town clerk is hereby directed to distribute copies to all involved agencies as identified in Town Board Resolution 2021-435. And then it says resolve, what we're actually adding is all of the agencies.
Because we always include the relevant information in the resolution that it applies to, so that people shouldn't refer to another resolution to get the information that is relevant to the one they're
So
reading.
there are five.
Makes sense.
There are five involved agencies, and then other interested agencies, there are 14 that are listed. All right, so I'll make a motion to amend to reflect that other copy of the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
And now I will make a motion to approve as amended.
Same second?
Same second. Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Now, did I actually read the resolution title?
No.
I don't think I did. All right, so let me just do that for the record. So that was to, we've already voted on it, but to issue a positive declaration for the change of zone petition entitled Concern for Independent Living that requests a change from R20 to multifamily MF44 and an increase in residential density pursuant to 330-8 to enable 12 units per acre in order to construct a 60-unit supported housing development that is 100% affordable in the hamlet of Tuckahoe.
On the motion.
Is that, actually, is it Tuckahoe? I guess it's technically Tuckahoe?
Hamlet of Tuckahoe?
I think it is, yeah. So we've already voted on it, but the planning board, we're the lead agency here, the planning board recommended a positive declaration. I do hope that we can do this expeditiously and keep the scope focused on the main issues of traffic that people are concerned about. But John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did, just quickly. We elected to consider this on that basis, and I just wanted to remind the board that we did. In fact, that was part of our understanding, at least it was part of mine, that those issues would be addressed as part of this. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. So I've already called the vote, but if anybody has any second thoughts, we've issued a positive declaration, which will now necessitate the...
Slow down, you move too fast.
It'll necessitate the preparation of a environmental impact statement. Environmental impact study? Is the EIS?
Yeah, you're right. It's a statement, it is, yes, environmental impact statement.
Statement, okay.
That's right.
Thank you. All right, so now we,
Walk-ons.
thank you. What do well, you already modified that. Okay. All right, so 36614 prefers charges and ratifies a stipulation. So, I'm sorry, ratifies a suspension.
Second.
This is against an office assistant. Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. All right, next is 36942, appoints Lisa Merker to office assistant position in the building department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 36945 appoints Suzanne Kuna to senior office assistant position in building department.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 36946 appoints Kelly Campbell to senior office assistant position in justice court.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 36973 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution Number 2021-628, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Haydock Engineering LLC for professional engineering services in connection with the preparation of a map and plan report for the formation of a sewer district within the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. Just give me 1 second. There was a minor correction in the second paragraph. All right, anybody have any questions on that? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right. Next is 36975. It's warrant number 13, capital 13, CPF number 13, and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. And the last resolution, 36977, authorizes the purchase and installation of 5-ton rooftop HVAC unit from Train US Inc. using Omnia Partners contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, that is it, folks. Is there any other business? Seeing none, hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn. Seconded by, I'm sorry? Councilman Bouvier?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.